I'll introduce you in a second, but before we do, I really want to see what you think of these. So, Jacob Hester, welcome to your first podcast.
Thank you.
I hope you like this. I hope I like this. It sort of hits you after a second, doesn't it?
Spice. Put jalapenos in here?
Yeah.
Floating. Nuh-uh.
So,
Dude, that's the best drink I've ever had in my life.
really?
Yeah.
So what I did was you mix, you boil a cup of water and a cup of sugar and 2 jalapenos, and then after it gets to boiling and all the sugar disappears like magic, you stir it up, take it off the heat, let it sit for 30 minutes, take out the jalapenos, add in a cup and a half of fresh squeezed lemon juice, add 4 cups of water, put it in the fridge all night, and this is what you get.
Well, I appreciate the effort. Actually, I do like it because I like the taste. Like, the taste of the jalapeno, it's not actually hot. Like, it's not spicy. You know what
But
I
it's
mean?
also not what you're used to drinking. You're not used to getting like a numb feeling in your mouth after you
Yeah.
take a sip of lemonade.
I just like it a lot because it's the taste of the jalapeno without the heat. Because that's my big thing. I love the taste of jalapenos, but I'm also the whitest guy that's ever lived. So I don't deal with spicy stuff very good.
I'm going to take a few pictures of you while we're doing this thing, just so you know. So be prepared. All right, you ready for this introduction?
I am.
I'm going to do something I've never done on this podcast before.
Uh-oh.
I'm going to read 3 different potential Jacob Hester profiles. And the audience, before we finish and reveal who you really are, if you're watching on YouTube, I want you to comment, do you think he's number 1, 2, or 3? And if you're listening on Spotify, there's a link where you can say text us or text the podcast or something. So shoot us a text and say if you think he's number 1, 2, or 3 before we do the true reveal. All right, are you ready?
I am.
All right, here we go. All right, everyone. Welcome to another episode of David's Saturday Night Sit Back. Tonight, sitting back from me, I have Jacob Hester, who is an American former professional football player who is a fullback in the National Football League. He was selected by the San Diego Chargers in the 3rd round of the 2008 NFL Draft, and he played college football for the LSU Tigers. That's Jacob Hester, number 1. Number 2, Jacob Hester is a former police officer here in Austin, Texas, who after an unfortunate on-the-job incident pivoted to working in a local health club while he recovered from his injuries. He recently was able to secure a role that has him back in line with his passion and skill set, and his career is back on track. Jacob Hester, number 3, is a financial planner here in ATX. Graduating from Cedar Park High and later on to Southwestern University, he went from being a country club server to helping families experience financial freedom through a holistic approach while standing on the foundation that is Jesus Christ, his Lord and Savior. All 3 real people.
Yeah.
Which one do you think you...
I'm just fake. I don't know.
I'm just I'm
Not real.
none of them. All right, for the big reveal, which one are you?
I am number 2.
You are number 2. Whoa! Who saw that
Who
coming?
would have thought? Not me.
No offense, but Jacob number 3 is pretty hot. But then I saw the part about, and I was thinking like maybe I'll invite him on the podcast, but then I saw he was hella Christian. I was like, yeah, I'm good.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
See, it's funny because the first one is I knew you were gonna do that guy because I know of him because like my dad. If you Google my dad, he like has a whole page because of his career and everything, and there's like pictures of him. But if you Google me, it's just that random fullback from the Chargers or wherever the hell he was.
Your dad has a shrine built to the fake Jacob Hester? What'd you say?
No, like if you Google my name, like Jacob Hester, that guy, the number 1 comes up.
Right.
But if my dad Googles himself, he's famous enough that his stuff will actually.
Who's your dad?
Don't worry about it.
You can't throw that out there and be like, I have a famous father.
No, he's not famous, but like he's big in like the law enforcement community and like Texas Commission on Law Enforcement. So like it's a bunch of pictures of him in like his suits and all the stuff that he's done for the state and like little videos of him throughout his career. And then I'm incognito because of the actual first famous one.
There really is nothing on you. I'm usually pretty good at digging up shit on people. But you have one Instagram account, which is private.
Yep.
And it has 11 posts in it. And I added you a couple weeks ago in anticipation of this, hoping I'd get unlocked to those 11 photos so I could come up with some notes and stuff. But you didn't add me.
You want to know why?
Because you don't like on your page.
Correct.
We're more than 10 minutes in. We can curse and stuff.
No, you're not wrong.
Homophobic maxing.
Yeah, for sure. Always have been, always will be. No, so a few months ago, I deleted every social media from my phone except for TikTok. It's the only thing I have. Because obviously I don't post on TikTok. It's just so I can brain rot scroll to have something on my phone. But I deleted like my Facebook, my Instagram, X, all of it. I don't have anything.
This is good. I was thinking about doing that, but I sort of have to have Instagram and LinkedIn, because that's how I get 90% of my guests. And then TikTok and YouTube, I have to be able to. I don't have to. I choose to comment back on all the commenters. I'm jealous of your freedom from social media.
Yeah, it's been nice. I mean, it is a little weird because I don't know what the hell is going on with like even my family or like anything, but it's blissful. Like I don't care. You know, I don't worry about it. Like if there's something that major, somebody will call me. Bless you.
Thank you. I don't censor myself much when my friends are on.
I'm gathering that. It's like this one seems a bit more casual than the ones I've watched.
You watched Sorry Time. That one was casual AF. Which other ones did you watch? Now I'm curious.
I can't remember I don't know the names of the episodes.
What'd they look like?
Well, I watched the one you told me about at the gym with what's his face who was on Kill Tony.
Isaac and Zeke and Frank.
Yeah, and then I went and watched the clip of him and I died. I mean, kudos to that guy.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't know how he is like walking around. I would never show my face again.
So you know what I found out was that like 15 minutes before he went on stage, he found out that I think his mom's place had been like taken over by his drug addict father, and they were using it as like a house to sell more drugs through. And the police had just like shown up and raided the house or something like that. And then like the prior night before, his grandma died. And it was this like just confluence of events leading up to the one time he finally got to kill Tony.
Got his shot.
And his brain was just so fried. He was like, I don't know what else to do. So I'm just going to get up there, do whatever my best is.
and say fuck you to the Kill Tony.
To the Kill Tony. The KT.
The KT, that's what they call him.
Yeah. Are you happy?
I am happy. I wish this wasn't a mocktail.
Me too.
What can we do about that?
Instacart.
I don't know what that is.
Well, it's how you get alcohol when you don't have any. It's Sunday. We couldn't even order something even if we wanted to.
Dude, yeah, Texas sucks.
It does suck. One of my friends just moved here from New York, and this no hard liquor on Sunday thing really blew him away. Also, the fact that you can't buy alcohol past midnight, he's like, that's when I need it the most.
Yeah. It used to be earlier, and they changed it to midnight because it used to be like 10 o'clock a few years ago.
They make you plan ahead now.
Yep.
Which people that are drinking past midnight aren't always great at that.
No. We're all people.
Yeah.
We're not adults.
Well, we'll have you back, or you can just come hang out. What are you doing on Thanksgiving? You're probably with family, huh?
Yeah, well, I work on Thanksgiving, but my family's, I've got my mom's side doing stuff, my dad's side doing stuff, and then my girlfriend Cadence, like her mom's side doing stuff, her dad's side doing stuff, so it's like this trying to bob and weave between 4 different ones and figure out what we're doing, but I work, so I'm really not concerned about it. I'm just like, if we can make it to 1 or 2 of them, then we can. But
how about this? Whichever one you're at, I'll go to a different one and pretend to be you.
Yeah, that could work. We look very similar. It's the hair.
You just almost snorted. Uh-huh.
No.
If this wasn't live, I'd rewind. Well, not live, but like if I could rewind, I would. I'm going to get you to snort before this episode's over.
You probably will. I mean, sometimes you're almost funny enough to make me snort.
Thanks.
No problem.
All right, can we talk about you for a few minutes? We'll just go like a few minutes of your history, and then we'll get lighthearted as fuck after that. Not to say your history is like dark, full of death and depression and anxiety. Are you a native Austin?
No. So I grew up in West Texas. I was born in San Angelo. I grew up in a little tiny town called Eden, Texas. Population there, even to this day, is probably around 2,000. Half of it is because there is a privately owned prison within the city limits, and so they account for like 1,000 plus of the population.
50%.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's where pretty much everybody works. The only other thing that's really there to do is either you're rich enough and have the money to be like a rancher, like you have land, but those are all like generational, passed down sort of things. But my parents are divorced, and so growing up, I'd go back and forth between my mom and my dad. My dad, working for the state, he ended up eventually promoting his way to Austin, which is, as you know, the capital, and it's like kind of the headquarters for everything state related. So in my like middle school era is whenever my dad was transferred to Austin, and so that was me like being around out here and kind of seeing Austin, which for me was like this huge mecca of a town, and I was like, oh my god, like this is great, this is where I want to live. Like there's more than one stoplight and more than one fast food restaurant,
more than one prison.
Yeah, more than one prison, which is what we're hoping for. And then so I graduated high school in 2016. I was 17 years old, and a month later, me and one of my best friends from high school, Diego, also gay, he was still in the closet back then, funny enough, and I would tell him all the time. I was like, dude, it's cool. Like, we're fine.
Did you know?
Oh, yeah. I mean, he didn't say anything to me. He swore up and down, like, no, I'm straight. And I'm like, Diego, you're not.
Real quick, not to interject. I wish I had that friend in my life.
Yeah.
Because they all came around after I came out.
Yeah.
And they all said, oh, we knew. Why didn't you say anything?
Yeah. No, I told him from the jump. As soon as I met him, because so he had moved to our small town my junior year, so he was like a new kid. I had been with everybody else in my grade since kindergarten. Like
you had been with everyone, like you hooked up with all of them.
Wrong. Do not have it like that.
What a player,
dude.
Playa.
Yeah.
No hot R's in this house.
No. We do not play that around here. It's lighthearted. We had all been in the same class together since kindergarten. So whenever he moved to Eden, it was like this big ordeal. And I remember as soon as I met him, he was the first guy I had been around who was like very feminine. And then so of course for us all growing up in this little podunk town, we're like, oh, gay. Look at this guy, he dresses nice. and he had moved from Dallas. So we all of course like tried to welcome him in and whatever, and we were being nice to him. And then I was like, oh, this dude's super cool. And so he like kind of joined our friend group, and we all hung out all the time. But in Eden specifically, he was very like, guys, I'm not gay. Like, I think he was like scared, because it was like this podunk thing. And so the month after graduation, whenever me and him, we were like, we're going to move to Austin. And we loaded up everything that we had in the back of my old truck and his truck. And we drive to Cedar Park, and we get an apartment. And I remember we had a 1-bed, 1-bath apartment. And so we had like, a twin-size bed on one side and a twin-size on the other. And we're laying there, and we had just both started working at a Sonic. And we're laying there, and I'm like, hey, like it's a pitch black dark, like we're trying to go to sleep.
Yep.
And I'm like, hey, man, like it's okay, like you can be gay. You can tell me. And he was so pissed. He's like, Jacob, I'm not fucking gay. And I was like, okay. And whatever you say, pal. And he ended up only staying in Austin for like 6 months. So like halfway through our lease, he ends up leaving because he was like, man, this sucks. Like, I don't know what I want to do. So he ended up going back, not to Eden, but to San Angelo, which is like the next biggest town over there. And he like started going to college. He's a real estate agent now. But I remember he moved back to San Angelo, and then all of a sudden I see on social media that he had a boyfriend. And I was like, there we go. Finally. Like, I've telling him for years, but he just, he denied it tooth and nail. But, sorry, I got very sidetracked there with that story. It was like gay, so.
That's what podcasting is for. Just tell
Talking
stories
about gays.
Yeah. Well, before you go back to you, did you comment on the photo?
No, I didn't comment on it. I think I either texted him or called him, and we had a conversation about it. And I was like, dude, like, I told you.
You lied to me.
Yeah. And he was like, yeah, I just didn't know, I was scared. I didn't know what to say or like how to bring it up. And I was like, you didn't have to bring it. I brought it up to you like every day. You could have just been like, yeah, you're right. And like, it would have been that.
Maybe you got nervous that night because you both were in bed and it was pitch black. And in his head, he's like, oh my gosh, is this going to be like the first time I like touch another guy like that? Not touch, like, but like.
Waits till I'm asleep.
Ooh.
Something, a little kinky.
Yeah. No, is he the friend that was there the day that those two guys called the police on each other?
No. That's Elias.
Oh, yeah.
He's my like longtime best friend. Like we grew up together. Like he'd always lived in Eden too. I'm gonna make him watch this now, and that you think that he's the gay one.
Well, I didn't necessarily think he was the gay one.
You did.
Yeah. He's just the only friend of yours that doesn't live in Austin that I've met. So it was my only,
Sure, pal.
Yeah, sure.
I gotcha.
What else was I going to ask? That's crazy that he moved from Dallas to Eden.
Yeah, I don't know why. I don't even think that I thought to ask him the whole time. I haven't talked to him in years.
You want to call him?
No, I don't even think I have his number anymore.
I do.
Y'all all stay connected.
I can just find these things.
No, at the community, y'all are always connected.
Yeah.
I'm picking up what you're putting down. But yeah, no, I haven't talked to him in forever. I mean, before I deleted everything on my socials, I could see that he was doing good and he's got his whole real estate thing going and he's making a name for himself in West Texas real estate, which is awesome to see because he always talked about it. Like when we moved in together, my whole thing was like, I'm going to be a cop, going to be a cop. And his was kind of like, I don't know what I want to do, but I think I want to get into real estate. And it was cool because, at that point I was a 911 dispatcher at the time whenever he left. And whenever I saw that he got his real estate license and he was like working for Keller Williams and he was selling houses and like got a new car and, was dressing nice, I was like, oh, like, hell yeah, like my boy made it, and it's funny to look back because, I mean, he is obviously still doing that. Like, that was his dream and he got it. And then for me, it was like my dream was law enforcement. I got it. And then it just, like, beat the shit out of me and kicked me into a whole different life. It's like, fuck, I made the wrong choice.
No. Maybe.
I don't know. I'm happy of my time in law enforcement. It was a lot of fun. I got to do a lot of fun stuff, but I mean, looking back, it was brutal. Like there was a lot of fucked up shit that happened, and I guess that kind of veers us back onto the story of me. But I was still in Cedar Park. I became a dispatcher. And so for almost 4 years, because I got that job right whenever I turned 18, that's all I did. And I only worked night shift.
You got a dispatcher job at 18?
Mm-hmm.
How do you do that?
I just apply.
Seems like sort of a... Did you ever see that movie with Halle Berry where she worked...
Yeah.
Were you essentially doing that?
It was no.
Because I was going to say, that seems like a really big responsibility for this little 18-year-old from Eden, Texas, to just come wandering and be like, "Hey guys,
yeah, I'll handle this." No, I mean, it was like, it's a big deal, right? It's something that you do have to take seriously. But I was a dispatcher in a small town. Like, it was nothing like being a dispatcher in like L.A. or New York, where you're doing all these like crazy calls, like kidnappings and murders. I mean, it was just people calling the cops on noisy neighbors and like calling saying that somebody was driving recklessly. Like, it was just stuff like that, medical calls or whatever. But I was doing that, and I knew, still my goal was law enforcement. But you can't be a cop until you're 21. So I was working as a dispatcher, and then whenever I was old enough, I went into the academy. I started the academy whenever I was 20 years old, and then I turned 21 in August, and then I graduated the academy in December. And right before I graduated the academy, it was actually, I think, because I graduated December 9th, it was a weekend of like Thanksgiving, and I was driving from Austin back home, and I was going to go see my mom and my grandmother, because my grandmother was in the hospital. And I had this like super old, if people know what it is, like a Ford Crown Victoria. So like, they're called Crown Vics. And any cop that you ever come across will say that the Crown Vic was the greatest police car that was ever around and ever will be. Every one of them wants it back. But I had one that my dad had bought from like the surplus of the state. So like, they always have auctions. Like, you can go buy old police cars for like a couple $1,000s. Like, they're road to hell and like nasty or whatever. But
keep talking.
mine was on a like security detail with the governor, so it was in good shape. I was I was driving, and I was outside of Llano, Texas, and this dude. Do you know the statistic talking about like people on the way to the airport like crash at like very high rates compared to like any other time in your life? You ever heard that?
No.
Yeah.
Is it because they're in a rush, you think?
I don't know, but it's like this thing of, I don't know what the exact like stat or percentage is, obviously, but like people that are going to the airport, or like when you're less than a mile away from your house, that's when like you're more likely to get into a car crash. So this dude is driving, trying to get to Austin to get on a flight for Thanksgiving, and he blows through a stop sign. He's coming off of a highway, and I'm on a highway, so it's like out in the country, like there's nothing. And he blows through it, and I T-bone him going like 70 miles an hour in my Crown Vic. And he was driving this big Dodge, like 2500, and that was my first ever car crash. So I kind of knew, what was going on whenever the big one happened, whenever I was a cop that you were talking about. But it's weird. Have you ever been in a car crash? Like a serious one?
Where where it involves someone else, and no. Mm-mm.
Yeah, because like it's weird how, at least for me it was both times, it's like slow motion. It's very bizarre. Like it was, I could see him pull out, and I have both my feet pressed on the brake, and I'm gripping the steering wheel, and I'm just like, literally all I was like, fuck, 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 fuck. And I'm trying to turn, like, with him the way that he's going. And I remember I had this moment where I could see him, like, in his window. Because, I'm about to T-bone him right on his door. And he's looking at me. And I could, like, see, he's, like, wide-eyed. And then right before the hit, I could see him, like, turn. And I'm like, oh, my God. And, like, I just remember, like, feeling it. And I could see my hood crunch in. And my windshield, like, these little streaks start to go across of it, shattering. And then we go off into like a ditch, and it's like smoke is filling the inside of my car. And so I'm thinking, I'm like panicking. I'm like, oh my God, the car's on fire. And I was with my ex at the time. And I remember the way that the vehicles came to a stop, like the my car was kind of up against his truck, like on the passenger side. So she couldn't get out. But we had hit so hard that my door was like kind of up and like out of how it's supposed to normally sit, so I couldn't open it. And, you know, it's one of those things where you hear about people that you get into something like that and that adrenaline rush, like they get like this strength, you know?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I remember like sitting sideways in my seat and I was kicking my door with both my feet. And it finally like kicked open. And then I get out and she crawled out. And I don't know if it's the same for you, but like if you ever see videos of like car crashes like on TikTok or Instagram or whatever, like if you ever see like dash cam photos or videos, every time I watch them, I get pissed off, you know, and I'm like, oh my God, if that happened to me, I'd beat the shit out of that guy. You know, like, like, oh fuck, did I go to jail? In that moment, whenever I got out of the car, I did have that for a split second where I was like, I'm about to go beat the shit out of this dude. And I go around the front of my car, and this little boy stumbles out of the passenger seat of that truck. And he's probably like 8 or 9. And he's screaming and crying. And he's yelling for, like, help my dad, somebody help my dad. And at this point, a bunch of people had already pulled over, and so we're all going up. And we go through the passenger door, and we're pulling this dude out that just caused the crash and nearly killed me and my ex. And we get him out, and his shoulder was dislocated, and I think he had like broken his arm or something. But it's weird how I went from this level of like, I want to kill this dude, to seeing his son like begging for help, to like, I have to save this man. I will do anything I will die for you right now. Like, we have to get him out of here. I don't know. It's this weird. Humans are weird. You know what I mean? Like, we just don't make sense. Like, we have these like ups and downs of like anger to helpfulness that it's bizarre. But anyway, I get sidetracked again. I graduate the police academy. Well, the agency that I was a dispatcher at, I told them that I would be a cop on the streets for them for 1 year in this tiny town, because I wanted to go do bigger and better.
Eden or somewhere else?
No, somewhere else. It was Lago. So I do 1 year on patrol, and before my 1 year is up, I apply to Cedar Park, and I get it, and I couldn't believe it. You know, I'm like, oh my God. I mean, because it, you know, for most people don't know, like, kind of how the process is to becoming a police officer. Like, it's very difficult. It's depending on the agency. Some, like, smaller towns, it's just kind of a, like, oh, you don't have a criminal history and you have your certifications? Cool, here's a gun and a car. Like, have fun.
Oh.
Yeah. But bigger agencies, it's not like that. So I remember whenever I did it's called a civil service exam, which is like the very first preliminary thing you have to do for agencies that are civil service. Don't really know what it means exactly. I just know that it meant that we had more protection than like other places where, you know, if you like piss off the chief or like the city manager, they could just walk in and fire you. Like, you're done. Pack up your shit and go. If you're civil service, it gives you more protection. Like, they have to have a reason and like articulated and documented of like why they're letting you go. But with that means it's harder to get into. So I go in to do the test, and they had held it at, I think it was at one of the high schools. And there was probably over 100 people in there trying to get these few spots that they had. And I knew that I was going to be a little higher up their hiring list because I was already certified. Like, a lot of these people had never gone to a police academy. They were just like trying to get their foot in the door. But of the 100 or so people that were there that first day, when it was all said and done, they hired 5 people who were not certified that they sent through an academy, and then 2 of us that were already certified. So there's only 7 of us that got hired out of that like 100 and something that were there for that first test. And so, you know, in my mind, I'm like, holy shit, dude, like I'm fucking awesome.
Such a stud.
Yeah, dude, I'm like, God, this world is mine. I can do anything I want. And then during the rest of the hiring process, like towards the end, I had this moment where I genuinely almost quit. Like before I had even seen the streets yet. I'm sure, you know, this is just for me in that line of work, but, you know, everybody's had that one person at work that just, like, ruins it for you. Mm-hmm. Like, there's always one guy that's just, like, you come across him and you're like, what the fuck is your problem? Like, why do you hate everything? But, so obviously at the time, whenever I'm going through this, I'm still a cop in Lago. Like, I'm still patrolling at night while I'm doing all this stuff during the day, so I'm fucking tired 24/7. I get called into an office, and it was called PSD, which was Professional Standard Division, which is essentially their name for, like, IA, like Internal Affairs. Like, they, you know, like the rats of cops who, like, try to get all the cops in trouble. So this dude calls me in there, and, you know, I had just gotten the job. Like, I'm pumped. I'm like, man, I'm going to fucking do this, you know, like, it's whatever. I go in, and I sit down, and I hadn't talked to this dude at all yet. I didn't really know him. I just knew his name, and I'd seen him around. And I sit down, and he goes, hey, man, what the fuck is your problem? That's the first thing he said to me. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, sir? And he was like, everybody else is getting hired is, like, super excited. They're super enthusiastic. They're very pumped. You act like you don't want to fucking be here. And in my mind, I'm just staring at him, like, dumbfounded. I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? This is all I've ever dreamed of. And I told him, I was like, I'm sorry that I'm not sitting here, like, jumping up and down and, like, doing a little cheer routine for you. And I was like, but I am excited to be here. This is what I want to do. I don't show my emotions like that. And this was the younger me, and back then I really was like that. Like, I didn't go out. I didn't drink. I had never done any drugs. Like, I was just this very, like, straight and narrow. I had a goal, and that's what I did, mm-hmm. and nothing else got in the way. And I didn't show emotion at all. And I was so angry at him. And he just kept on. You don't want to be here. You think this is a big fucking joke. Because he was pissed off because I knew the chief at Cedar Park. And so, like, after I had done one of my oral boards, he, like, I've known him for a long time, but he recused himself from my hiring process because of that. Like, he was not involved in it at all. And so
he pulled himself out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because he was like, I know him personally. Like, I'm not going to.
The chief,
yes.
Not the IA guy that
no,
was being a dick. Okay,
yeah.
Okay.
The chief knew my family, like, knew my dad, like, they're buddies.
Real quick, and this isn't a joke. What's an oral board? Sorry, I've just never.
Like, that sounds hot. Where do I sign
It's like
up?
a glory hole.
Yeah,
but yeah, no,
it's just a
no.
cop circle jerk.
Yeah. Oh shit!
Jesus Christ, David, you got all hot and bothered with the oral board.
I did.
Fucking A.
That's okay. I like a little fur thad, or a little thad fur in my drinks.
Yeah. Adds some texture.
At least it was yours and not mine. All right, oral boards. Or, I mean, at least it was mine and not yours.
I was like, thanks, pal.
I'm already drunk.
Off the mocktail.
There's so much sugar in this thing. Between that and the Zin. And I did have caffeinated coffee this morning, which I've been off of caffeine for about a week, so I probably am a little bit more like, wowzer, than normal, even if I'm not showing it.
What is the point of that?
Of what?
Getting off caffeine.
I want to be more like Keaton.
Nobody can be like Keaton but Keaton.
But you can try. Do you just give up because you can't be like Natty Sensation?
Yeah, he's the Natty Sam Sulik.
No, actually, the main reason was because last Sunday I woke up and I felt fantastic, and I hadn't brewed my coffee yet, and I had some decaf in the cupboard, so I can't lie and be like, oh, I'm 100% off, because even decaf is like 3 to 5% of what a. Okay.
Did you just say cupboard? What the fuck?
Yeah.
Are we in Britain?
We're in 1923. Didn't you know?
My decaf in the cupboard. What the fuck are you talking about? I genuinely for a second was like, what the fuck is a cupboard? Yo, you're in Texas. It's the damn cabinet. And that's
I
it.
had some decaf in the pantry.
Were you referring to the pantry when you said cupboard?
Yeah.
That's even worse.
Yeah, so I woke up and I felt great. and I was like, why am I going to drink caffeine when it's more so of just the ritual of like having the hot mug, and me and the dog either get back in bed and he gets on my lap, or we get on the porch and we'll just think about life and get caffeinated as fuck. So that morning I made decaf, and then every day this week I was like, let's just see how long this lasts. And then yesterday, well, I lied to you. It's multiple lies already.
Yeah, you lie a lot.
So then yesterday, my guest that was supposed to come over at 5, long story short, came over at 9:30. And I was like, well,
Holy
I
fuck.
need to wake up for this thing. And he requested caffeinated. So I was like, all right, here we go. So then this morning when I woke up, I was really tired because I stayed up till 1 a.m. watching TV last night. I was watching the Defenders on Disney Plus. And then I woke up. It's a show about Daredevil and Jessica Jones and Luke Cage and the Iron Fist.
Oh.
You know any of them?
Yeah, I watched Luke Cage.
So the point was to see, like, think about, like, why was I using this thing as a crutch when I don't even need it?
A crutch.
Yeah, like, why are you boosting? I'm the unusual one in Austin, where I'm like, why am I drinking this if I don't even feel like I need it? I feel like a lot of people here are like, I think I need it, therefore I'm going to drink it, whereas I'm like...
You know, that's fair. I truly feel like energy drinks don't do anything for me. Like, if I can go, like, 2 or 3 days without having one just because I forget about it and I don't think about it, and I'm fine, and then I can pick it right back up again and be drinking one every morning and, like, one at lunch, and nothing changes.
You think you do it more for the taste or to level out?
Maybe. I don't know what it is.
Why'd you drink that Monster this morning?
Habit. I went to bed last night right after UT fucking lost, and I went to sleep at like 11, and I woke up like an hour before I texted you, and I was like on my way. Like, I mean, I got a full night's sleep. Like, I woke up, and I didn't even wake up to an alarm. I just like woke up. Like, it was like that beautiful harmony of your body woke you up naturally because you're fully rested. And I felt great. Like, I got up and got ready. I wasn't tired at all. And I was like, yeah, I'll have a Monster.
Is there a decaf Monster?
I hope not. That would be gay.
We taughted.
That literally retarded. What the fuck were we talking about?
Oral boards.
Yes. So I had 2 oral boards. The first one is like the preliminary one, and so it's like the highest ranking person that was in that oral board, I think, was like a lieutenant. So it was like a lieutenant, some sergeants, and then some like random guys that they pulled off a patrol, like just normal patrol officers. And what it is you sit at a table, and you obviously have to show up like dressed very nice. Like, I'm wearing like a full suit, and all of us that had been, making it like step by step through this process, we're all waiting like in this hallway, and we're going in one at a time. And each of them are in there for probably about 30 minutes. And everybody that came out had this like 1,000-yard stare, and they're like super nervous. And I'm like, man, what in the fuck is going on in here? Like, this is going to be fucking horrifying. So I was like the 3rd or 4th one to go. And I was so fucking nervous. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what the fuck they were going to ask me. I go in, and the lieutenant is waiting by the door. And he, like, shakes my hand, introduces himself. And then he goes and sits, and it's this long table, and they're all sitting on one side, lined up. Every one of them. It's a tactic, because later I ended up being able to sit on an oral board as an officer and, like, just see it from the other side. Thanks. It was not an accomplishment. It was hey, you need to go sit. Like,
well, in that case,
yeah, that's sorry. That's what I thought. I was like, I was on night shift. I was like, I have to wake up and listen to you guys grill some dickhead for an hour. Like, but you sit there, and they have like a packet in front of them, and they're just asking you questions. So, like, the first thing is like imagine a very hostile podcast that isn't recorded. It's like, as soon as you sit down, like, so tell us your name and a little bit about yourself and, like, why you're here.
So a conversation.
Yeah. But you go through this whole thing, not just a conversation, because it feels like you know what I mean? You're like, fuck. And your job's on the line. Like, I was, like, full send on this thing, you know? Like, this was my dream. My dream is on the line, I should say. And so they start asking you all these questions, like scenarios. And so, like, and I'll ask you this just to kind of get your take on it, to see what you would do. But I remember this very vividly as one of the scenarios that they gave me. And it's, you know, all these officers. And every time, this is another thing I'll throw in there, anytime one of them asks you a question, you have to make eye contact with them the whole time. And so, like...
That you're answering?
Yeah. So, like, they'll ask you something, and you're like, yes, sir, thank you for that question. What I would do is, and you're, like, locked in on them. And then once you're done with that question, you, like, look back ahead, and you're just kind of making eye contact with whoever. And then the next one starts speaking, and you're like, yes, sir, thank you for that question. So, and, like, you just go, it's very, like, militaristic, I guess I would say. But one of the scenarios that they asked me, they said, so imagine you're on patrol. It's like the middle of the week, like a Tuesday or Wednesday. You're working day shift. It's 12 o'clock, and you get a call of a suspicious person hanging around one of the high schools. You're the only officer there. You're the first one on scene. And you see a male subject with a trench coat holding an AR-15, and he is walking towards the door to the cafeteria. And you know that they're, like, having lunch in there. Most of the high school is in this room right now. What do you do? And so the way I answered it, well, first, to you, what would you do? You're a cop. You just got there. That's what you see.
I would... Where is he standing?
He is actively walking towards the door. He's probably, like, I think whenever they gave me that scenario, they said he was, like, 50 or so yards away from it. But he is walking towards it, holding an AR.
Okay. Officer Hester, this is what I would do in this situation.
Okay.
Hey, there's no laughing. This is very serious.
My fault.
I would accelerate my Crown Vic to as fast as it could go, and I'd go on a splatter spree. I'd pin that guy to the floor.
That's metal as fuck. Super dope. You know how that would have responded on their side?
Please tell.
You would have had everybody, because as you're answering...
I kept eye contact.
Yeah, but nobody's looking at you, except for the one person who asked the question. Everybody's got this paper in front of them, they're all writing. And any time you answered, even if it was very correct and they all know it, they're writing, and as soon as you answer, everybody goes like this. Everybody looks at you, gives you that little head shake, and starts writing.
All right, can I give a serious answer?
Mm-hmm.
All right, Officer Hester. I would first call for backup and let him know the potential gravity of the situation, and then I would slowly pull up so I'm sort of behind the guy, and I would get out of the car while staying behind my car to use it as protection, and I'd pull my firearm, and I'd announce myself and ask him to please put his gun down and then turn around.
Okay. And that's essentially what I had said, that I would put it out over the radio, male AR-15, he's actively walking towards the door. get out, open the door, draw down on him. Lethal cover is what it's called. Like
That's what I said.
Yeah, but like you don't have your taser out. It's just lethal. Like you're.
That's what I said. Lethal cover.
Okay.
I'm annoying him.
Whatever you say, pal.
Sorry, Wes.
And I would give him commands, tell him to drop the weapon, get on the ground. And then they said, okay, he's ignoring your commands and he is still walking towards the door. What do you do? And so here's the thing, right? As like you're sitting here like thinking about it, you have to like.
Oh, because you can't think in that situation. You have to act.
Yep.
Or not act.
And so, but they want to see how quickly you're going to answer that. So it's like.
I'd shoot him in the shoulder. Is that allowed? I mean, he has an AR-15 on what is it, middle school? Mm-hmm. Almost doesn't matter. A grade school campus. Mm-hmm. All right, maybe I wouldn't shoot him yet. I would repeat the order more sternly.
Okay.
That's a bad answer. I'd say please.
Please. Please, sir.
I'd pull out a second firearm and say, now consider this, motherfucker.
Yes. Hey, check this out.
These are real.
Yeah, they're real. I can be trusted with firearms.
I have more in the car.
Yeah, I have so many. Okay, he's still ignoring you and he's still walking. He's now 15 feet from the door.
At that point, I would shoot him.
Okay, and that's what I said.
And I think I really would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I'm not going to wait for him to kill a kid.
Right.
Like, I'm going to stop it before. And so that's what I said. I was like, I would shoot him. Like, I would use lethal force is what I said. And everybody stopped writing. And it's this game that they play. Because another thing is they're trying to get you to go back on your answer. That's a big thing they do, is they will ask you, like, are you sure that's what you would do? And they want you to, like, backpedal. Because if you can't stick to your guns of, like, what you said you were going to do, it looks bad. So I said that I would use lethal force. All of them stop writing. Every one of them looks at me. And then the lieutenant leading it says, you would shoot a man in the back who, like, hasn't raised his weapon to you. And I said, and a half a second, I was like, fuck. Like, I just fucked this up. Like, maybe I shouldn't. And then I thought logically for half a second, and I was like, yes, sir. That's what I would do. And everybody, like, does that same thing of, like, and keeps writing. And, I mean, my heart was pounding. Now, obviously, that's the correct answer. Like, that's what you want. They don't want you to wait for loss of life before you decide to kill this guy. But it's little things like that. I mean, it is so stressful going through the process. But that is, to answer your question, what an oral board is. It's just all of them there staring you down, asking you questions, trying to get you to go back on your word, trying to confuse you, making sure that you can, like, keep your story straight, keep everything in a line, that you're squared away and confident enough to, like, say what you need to say and do what you need to do. But to go back to this guy who was almost made me quit. So after that oral board, there's another one that's with, like, the command staff. So traditionally, the chief is the number one guy there, and then it's like his assistant chief and then the commanders. Well, the chief had recused himself from it because it was me. I go through that oral board, and that one was even more stressful because I knew I was to, like, the final stretch, and these are all, like, command staff. Like, these people have rank. Like, at the end of the day, it's their say. And I walked out of that room after it was over, like, shaking horrifically and thought I was going to throw up. Like, I mean, it was awful. So whenever I walk out of the door to that room, I see this guy who did not like me, this IA guy, and I hadn't spoken to him yet. Like, this was, like, before he confronted me about that thing. And I see him, and he's just mean-mugging me. Like, he just looked like a prick.
Was he part of it? Sorry.
No. He
Okay.
was in the hallway, like waiting. Like he was the one, like after it was over, he was like kind of leading everybody back downstairs to like leave.
Gotcha.
Well, whenever I came out, the chief, he comes up and he's like, "Hey man, how was it?" Because, you know, like, again, I've known him like my whole life. He's like, "Hey man, how was it?" And I was like, "Dude, that was fucking horrifying. Like that was the scariest thing ever." And he's like laughing with me and he's like, "Oh man, yeah, like it's super fucking stressful." And he like, you know, daps me up and like hugs me and he's like, "All right, man, well, like, you know, hopefully you did good and we'll see where it goes." I'm like, "Yes, sir, I appreciate it." And he's like, "All right, man," like slaps me on the shoulder and I walk off. And that was the moment that triggered him calling me into his office and being like, "What the fuck is your problem? Like, you think this is all some big fucking joke? Like, you're being unprofessional with our chief. Like, you suck, basically." And I was like, and I told him, I was like, "Look, I've known him a long time, since I was little. Like, I've been on family vacations with him and his kids. Like, I know his sons. They're around my age." And I was like, do you know that?" And he's like, "It doesn't matter. We're a paramilitary organization and you need to take this shit seriously or you're not going to fucking make it." And I walked out of that like fuming of like, fuck this agency. This place fucking sucks. I'm going to fucking go somewhere else. But I stuck with it. I don't know why. Looking back, it probably would have been a half decent idea not to be there because of what happened. But I stuck with it. And then sure enough, whenever I get on patrol and, you know, become buddies with some of the guys and I'm asking about him, I'm like, "What the fuck is his problem?" And they're like, "He's just a fucking dick. Like, we don't know. Like, just don't worry about it. Like, he sits in an office all day. Like, you're good." And then every time I would see him and you know, whenever you see somebody like the only thing I can equate it to is like if you ever see like a homeless guy on the street and you like one of those really aggressive ones and they just fucking stare you down like they just want to beat the fuck out of you and you're like, "Jesus Christ, I'm just trying to go to 6th Street." That's how he stared at me. Like he was just ready to fucking like start wailing on me. And I'm like, "Dude, what the fuck is this guy's problem with me?" Like, I've never done anything to this man. But I, you know, stayed on there. I was on patrol for, I want to say, a little over 2 years before the crash happened. And so, you know, the crash was brutal. And the crash happened at a time in my life personally where things were not good. And I was already debating on whether or not I wanted to stay as a cop. And I mean, I was like, you know, on my off weekends, I mean, I was like partying, like I was on the edge of like being an alcoholic. And I just was not happy. I was super depressed. I was having like all these issues. And I genuinely was one of those guys that was like, you know, if I get like shot and killed on patrol or I die some way, like, I don't give a fuck.
Why were you not happy?
Well, there was a couple of things. Like I had the breakup, and you know that was like a long-term relationship breakup. I wasn't happy at work, and that was the biggest thing. Was I would get sent to calls because as a cop, and you know anybody who listens to this who's been in law enforcement will know, like the cool shit that you see of like body cam footage and like police chases. That is probably, depending on what city you're in. I mean, if you're like a metropolitan, like APD or LA or New York, then yeah, maybe. But for all these other thousands of agencies, that is a like less than 1% of the job. Like 95% of it is dealing with like mental health or like domestic violence calls. The shit that nobody wants to deal with. Of like, you know, I had moments where I would get sent to like a domestic violence call. And, you know, these are two grown people that are married with kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm showing up as a 22-year-old police officer trying to counsel these two on their marriage. And, you know, at the beginning, I was very like, hey, you know, guys, like, you guys love each other, blah, blah, blah. Like, we need to separate for the night. You guys will work it out. Like, you know, couples go through this. Later on.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I've noticed that even though you were 22 and like newish to the job and whatnot, that third party, like unobjective, I have no skin in the game, can sometimes help. Did you feel like you were a help to them sometimes, or were they so like intertwined in their own problems that like it doesn't matter who that third party was, whether it was you or your chief who had been doing it for like years, it didn't fucking matter.
No.
Like they just didn't care.
Not at all.
How would their behavior change once an officer showed up, where they realized like this has gotten to a point where we now have someone at our home? Like, did you ever see like a light bulb moment go off where they were like, we're fucking this up?
Sometimes that was very rare, but there were the times where like we would get there and you could see from both of them like this shame of like, fuck, the cops are here. Like a neighbor called, they know that we're fighting, and now we have cops inside of our house. And everything would shut down, and they would just be sitting there with this like shame, you know, of like, Jesus Christ, like, what are we doing? 9 times out of 10 though, us showing up would amplify it. Whoever the aggressor was in the situation immediately would just like spike through. You fucking called the cops on me, blah, blah, blah. Who, like, people need to mind their fucking business. Who the fuck are you? You don't know shit about my marriage. Get the fuck out of my house. Like, it would be. And then you're standing there, you know, as a cop, and you're like, man, what the fuck am I doing here? Like, if it's just them yelling at each other, I mean, obviously, if, you know, somebody has put hands on somebody else, and it's like, that one we were like, okay, I'm glad we're here. Like, fuck this guy, you know, and then, like, let's fucking get him.
What are you allowed to do? Like, can you arrest that guy for 24 hours so he or she has a chance to cool off? Or, like, what's in the possibility of what you can do?
So, in the state of Texas, if, like, there's a domestic situation and somebody puts hands on the other one, that's assault family violence. And so in the state of Texas, that's one of the few laws. So, like, cops have a lot of, like, decisions. Like, you can make the choice 9 times out of 10 if you want to make an arrest, or just kind of give them a talking to and send them on their way. You have a lot of discretion. Assault family violence, you have no discretion whatsoever. If there is evidence that somebody has, like, put their hand on their spouse, or not even just their spouse, like a family member or roommates, like, if you and I both lived in here and you get pissed at me and, like, hit me, that would still fall under assault family violence, because, like, you live in a dwelling together. It doesn't matter if you're brother, you know, anything, roommates, that falls under it. In those situations, you have to effect an arrest. Like, the aggressor has to be arrested. And on top of that, you also have to fill out what's called an EPO, which is an emergency protective order. And so after they're taken to jail, an EPO is sent to a judge, and they look at the case and your complaint, like your affidavit saying, like, what it is that they did and the evidence that you have, and, you know, the whole scene, along with the emergency protective order, and that will get granted, which essentially, depending on how long the judge decides that it needs to be in effect, will bar the person who got arrested from even contacting or being anywhere near the victim. So, like, those have to happen in the state. But, you know, 9 times out of 10, like I said, it just kind of escalated everything. So at the beginning, you know, I was very, like, hopeful. Like, I was, like, not pissed off at humanity. You know, I was like, oh, okay, like, you know, people are people, like, we'll figure it out. Towards the end, I just got so bitter. Like, after going to so many of those calls, where now at this point I'm, like, 23 and some change, and I've been on the streets for a while. And I would walk in, and before I was kind of, like, skittish, like a little deer. Like, I didn't know what I was doing. I kind of let people, like, walk all over me, like the people that I was called there to, like, break up. Towards the end, I would walk in, and I was, like, this huge command presence. This is my fucking scene. nobody's talking unless I say they can, and nobody fucking moves unless I tell them they can move, and I'm going to tell them where to go. And so I would walk in, and you'd have a couple screaming, throwing shit, and it's like immediately grabbing whoever's the aggressor. 9 times out of 10, we all know it's usually the man. Grab him, put him down in a chair, and it's literally like pushing him there and like, don't fucking move. And then like going and like getting the girlfriend or wife or whoever it may be, sitting them down, don't move. And they're just like, oh shit. And then I sit there and we end up separating them, get both sides of the story. What the fuck's going on? And if it was one of those things where it's like nobody actually put hands on each other, nobody has any sort of visible like marks or injuries, not a lot we can do other than what we can do is we want to separate them. So like somebody needs to leave the house tonight. Go to a friend's house, get a hotel room. I don't give a shit, but you need to get the fuck out of here. And so by the end, I became this guy who would sit there and be like, do you understand? And like, you know, it's 2 grown people.
Mm-hmm.
9 times out of 10, they have kids. They're like in their 40s. And I'm like, do you understand how fucking absurd this is? And you just have these 2 people, these 2 strangers staring at you like, what? I'm like, I am 23 years old, single, and I am called here to try to tell you 2 how to act like adults.
Would you tell them that?
Yeah. Like towards the, I was so pissed off by like going to so many of them that I didn't give a fuck. I'd be like, this is ridiculous. You 2 are acting like little kids. Which one of you is leaving? I'm not fucking leaving. Well, I'm not fucking leaving. And then I would always pull that, even if there was like, you know, they didn't touch each other. There's not really, I can't really arrest them.
Sorry to interrupt. Mm-hmm. Sometimes the person who was being abused, would they refuse to leave, or not refuse, for lack of a better term, would they refuse to leave too?
Mm-hmm.
Huh. Why do you think they did? If you had to guess, if you had to make a broad generalization based off what you've seen, why would they want to stay?
They would typically like, this is my house. Like, this is my, like, I'm not being told to leave by anyone, especially, like, even with whatever's going on. Like, this is my place.
So they would almost rather stay and be abused because of pride than they would get out to somewhere safe.
Yeah, or even going on that note, like, you would, if it was something where I had calls where, like, a woman would be clearly, like, I mean, like, cut on the eye starting to swell, like, busted lip. Like, this dude clearly has beaten the shit out of her like, tonight. And I would go to make that arrest. And now all of a sudden, the female is trying to attack me. Of like, let him go. Like, he didn't do all this. And it's very clearly he did. Like, knuckles are bloody. Like, they're the only 2 in the house. Like, they fucking did this. But it there's a whole study on you know, that sort of thing where the victims of domestic violence oftentimes will attack, like, the police officer that's arresting their abuser. And the only thing I can really equate it to kind of is, like, this Stockholm syndrome of, like, hey, like, you know, now it's going to be 1,000 times worse, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, I mean, it was stuff like that, you know, like, those were the kind of things that I was dealing with all the time of, I'm not making any headway. You know, I'm doing this job, I'm putting my ass on the line for what? To barely afford the rent in my apartment and, like, have no sort of, like, freedom to do anything. I work 12-hour shifts. I'm on night shift. I would get every other weekend off. But at the same time, we're talking about an era where whenever I graduated the police academy and it was my rookie year was 2020. So, like, COVID kicks off. George Floyd happens. I had people that I had known my entire lives, like, cutting me off, trying to dox me, like, just because I was a cop. And at the time, you know, I'm like, I'm a small-town cop in Texas. Why are you trying to, like, put my address online and attack me for what happened to George Floyd?
These are friends of yours?
Side of the country, yeah. Like, people, like, that I knew from Eden. Like, I would get into full-on debates of, like, they would just start texting me or, like, messaging me on Facebook Messenger. And, like, them posting stuff like, fuck every single cop, especially the ones that you know, like directed at me. And I'm like, dude, I didn't. He's acting like I'm, Derek Chauvin. Like, I didn't do it. Like, I've been.
George Floyd wasn't in Eden.
Yeah. I'm like, dude, what do you want me to do? And so, yeah, I mean, I had gotten so tired of, like, constantly having to defend myself, whether it was personally or, like, on the job, like, physically defend myself. And dealing with mental health issues. Like, people, whenever somebody's having, like a true, like, psychotic break, or, like, you have somebody who's, like, severely schizophrenic or whatever, you would think, like, oh, if they need help, it would be, like, EMTs or, like, mental health people that would come and help them. It's not. It never is. It's police. I would say probably 85% of my job was just dealing with mental health. Like, finding out, like, where this person is, what's wrong with them, and then trying to get them help, like taking them to some sort of mental health facility. That was 9 times out of 10 my entire job. So I was just tired of it, and I just wanted to die, but I wasn't going to kill myself. And the night of my crash.
Hang on. Sorry. So you didn't feel like you were making, even though it seemed like this huge mountain of a assignment that you've been given, there were not enough calls being resolved in a positive manner where you felt like you were even doing a little bit of good for the city? Is it because none of them really ended good, even with your guys' intervention? It's almost like, well, he's going to get out of jail or whatever. Like, they're going to come back from the hotel. They're going to come back from their family member's house, and it's all just going to start all over again in a matter of weeks.
Yep. It's literally whack-a-mole. Like, you knock one down, they're just going to come right back and pop back up. Like, kudos to the guys that are still in the game and still do it just day in and day out. And the guys that I worked with that have been on the streets for 15 years. I'm like, dude, kudos to you. I could never, it's insane.
You ever ask one of them why they've done it for so long or how they get to that point?
Yeah. And it was just like, this is who I am. This is what I do. This is my job. What else would I do? Like, it kind of goes into that of, like, guys who were, like, in the military or whatever. And I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Fury. But, like, any time in the movie Fury, they're, like, in World War II and they drive a tank. And any time something fucked up would happen or they would almost die, they would all, like, say, best job I ever had, is kind of like a joke of, like, this shit sucks, but this is awesome. And that's how it was in law enforcement. It was like you would see some crazy shit, and it's this, the best job I ever had. No, it's not.
Yeah.
We all hate it.
And it sounds like the money wasn't even that good either.
No, it wasn't. If you wanted to make good money, you had to do a lot of, like, off-duty work. Like, the guys, especially out here in Austin, you see all the time, like, they're doing construction, and there's, like, cars behind them with, like, red and blue lights on. Mm-hmm. Those aren't, like active, like, they're working as a cop right now. Like, that, all those guys sitting out there, it is their day off, and they are hired by that construction crew to run traffic control for them. And so they are getting paid. They get paid a lot. Like, the guys doing the construction out here, they're probably making anywhere between $65 and $80 an hour to, like, sit in their car and, like, follow this construction crew along and make sure nobody runs them over. But if you want to make decent money in law enforcement, you have to sacrifice, like, all of your days off doing stuff like that, because the paycheck itself isn't going to do anything unless you're, obviously if you're promoting and you're, like a sergeant and then a lieutenant and you're working your way up, then yeah, they can make good money. But right now, with me leaving law enforcement and me being in the security sector, I am right now making more than my lieutenants were making at Cedar Park. And I do 25% of the work that I was doing before. Like, it didn't make sense to me to, like, stay in, especially after everything that happened. But, to go back to it, I was in this super bad headspace, and I was like, man, like this fucking sucks. I don't know what I want to do. And that night, I had given a tour of the police department to some sheriff's deputies.
What night was this? Do you remember the date?
It was February 2nd of
Year?
2022.
Okay.
So I had given a tour of the police department because one of them, she was a field training officer, and so she had a rookie with her, and they wanted to see what the inside of our police department looked like. And so it's like 1 a.m. whenever they show up, and I just happened to be at the police department, so I was like, yeah, fuck it, I'll show you guys around. I give them a tour of our police department. I walk back outside, and around the back side of the police department, we have this big awning, and that's where everybody like parks their patrol cars, and there's the door to go in where we like do our reports and everything. And so I stand out there with these 3 deputies, and we're like shooting the shit for a while. And then right as they're leaving, one of my buddies on my shift pulls up, and he's like, hey, what are you doing? And I'm telling him like, oh, I was giving them a tour. And he's like, cool, do you want to go to the gas station and get energy drinks? Because now it's like around 2 a.m. And we would always like try to, get energy drinks and like fill up on gas. We had our own gas pump at the police department. That's where we fill up the cars. But, like get energy drinks or whatever because, 2, the bars close. So we know like now we're going to have to like, let's fucking wake up and see if like, we're probably going to get like some DWIs tonight. So I'm like, yeah, fuck it. And I get in my car, he gets in his car, we pull out of the police department, I'm following him, and we're going up one of the highways in town, and I'm just staring at the back of his car. We go through one green light, we're coming up to the next one, and I'm just sitting there, and I'm just looking at him, and I see like a bit of movement like out of the corner of my eye, and like right as I went to look, I didn't turn my head or anything. Like I just started to move my eyes over that direction. And I get T-boned right on my driver's side front wheel. And it sent me like spinning through the intersection. It like my hands got knocked off the wheel. I guess I was like rubbing my tongue in between my teeth or something because I almost bit my tongue off. I had all 32 teeth imprinted, little cuts all over my tongue. And I had slammed up against, like our armrest is like steel with like a little pad just like this on it because it's not like a typical interior of a car. And that had like slammed up against my pistol on my hip and kind of like jostled everything sideways. And in that moment, I herniated my L5 in my back. I didn't know it at the time. And my car finally comes to a stop. And I remember hitting my body camera and turning it on. And I was trying to turn on my dash cam. That way it would like record what had happened before.
They're not just on 24/7?
No. Like if anytime we would like turn on our lights and sirens, the cameras would kick on and it would turn on your body camera too. But if it was just recording 24/7, I mean, that would be like so many gigabytes of, because everything is stored.
That's a good point.
You know, like it's, so if you were going to a call or like you were doing something, you would just turn it on. And then, that's, you can't just like get away with not doing that because it's like, okay, well, you were dispatched to this call or you were on this, where is your footage of it? Like you would get in trouble immediately if you didn't have it on. So I tried to turn on the camera, but the engine of my car was completely obliterated. So all my electronics in the car are shutting down. The airbag is deployed. My computer, we called it the MCT, was like the pole that held it up was like sideways, and so my computer is like crushing down into my thigh. And I'm trying to reach for like my radio, like my in-car one that you bring up, the mic, but it had flown all over the damn place, and so I couldn't figure out where it was. And then so I go, okay, well, I'm going to get the one that's on me, like my handheld, and I'm reaching for it, and it's not there either. And I'm like, Jesus Christ. And then I'm feeling for my radio, and like, it's attached to it, and I'm like pulling it out of the floorboard, and I can hear everybody like on my radio, and it's like the guy that I was following, Kimberly, he's like, hey, start EMS, like Hester's hit. Like, a 10 code for a car crash was 1050. And so he was like 1050, like fleet, like saying fleet meant that it was an officer involved, like crash.
Can I ask you a quick question?
Mm-hmm.
What did you think? Did you have any idea what was going on? Like, did you think I've been attacked? I've been hit by a drunk driver. There's a gang violence. Like, did anything go through your head instantly of like, oh shit, X, Y, and Z is going down right now?
Yeah, instantly I thought, what my first thought was drunk driver, because I didn't see any headlights, like I didn't see anything, and I had the green light. And then as my car stopped, I was still thinking like, holy shit, like that was a bad crash. And then I had this moment of like, wait, I am a police officer in a police vehicle. Maybe this is something else. And as I'm getting out and I get my radio, I'm on the radio, and my call sign then was 422. And so I'm like, 22, I need EMS is what I said. But like my tongue was all swollen because I'd almost bit it off. So it sounded fucking stupid. And I could see fingers like reaching into my car to like pry my door open. And it turned out that there was just these dudes that were driving behind me, because the guy that I was following, Kimberly, he's like trying to turn around, and he's also checking on the other car, because at this point I've said something on the radio, like he knows I'm alive. Mm-hmm. So he kind of checks on that car first. It hit me, and there's these dudes. I mean, it's like these like, you know, they're probably like in their 20s, like around my age, because I remember seeing like fingers pulling my door open. And as I'm like, I get my seatbelt off and I'm like trying to like fall out of the car, I'm looking at the ground, and the two sets of shoes I see are Jordans. And so I was like, these aren't cops, like who are these guys? And so I kind of fall out, and I had this moment where I like looked up to see, like, make sure that they were actually helping me, or like if they were like, you know, doing something. And I see them, and like one of them is like kind of holding me, and he's like, holy shit, dude. And these guys are like, dude, this is a fucking cop. Like, this cop just got fucked. And I'm like, oh my God. And I'm crawling forward, and this dude, he's like, what the fuck is going on? And I am laying down, and then Kimberly, he comes over, and he like is like tapping my back, and he's like, hey man, like EMS is on the way, like you're good, just stay still. And I could hear my car like making all these noises, like, you know, the hoses and everything, and like it's smoking, and I'm like, holy shit, my car's gonna blow up. And so I'm like hurt, my legs hurt, my back hurts, my face hurts, my tongue hurts, and I'm crawling forward, and I end up leaning up against one of those like big green electrical boxes that you see like near intersections. And I lean up against it, and I'm just looking at my car, and it's like fucked. And I'm looking around, and there's all these people and like civilians, and this guy runs up, and he's with his wife, and he's like, hey man, are you all right? And he's like got his hand on my shoulder, and I'm like, no, I'm not all right.
Nice question. I guess it's a standard question to ask. Like,
yeah. But then his wife, she's like, hey, like my husband's an off-duty APD officer, like he works for Austin. And so I kind of had this sigh of relief of like, okay, cool, like at least there's some guy here, because I don't see any of my guys. I'm like, at least this guy's a cop. Like, I don't know what the fuck's going on. And he's like asking me all these questions. He's like, is there anybody else in the car? Like, were you transporting somebody? And I'm like, no, like it was just me. And then I can hear all the sirens, and I can see the lights, and I'm like, all right, here comes the cavalry. Like, I don't know what happened. And in that moment, I'm thinking to myself, I'm like second guessing everything, because immediately I thought, fuck, like I'm on patrol. Like, this is going to be an internal affairs investigation. Like, they're going to make sure everything was copacetic. And I'm sitting there, and I'm like, fuck, was I speeding? I don't think I was speeding. Like, was I on my phone? No, I wasn't on my phone. Did I have my seatbelt on? Yeah, I had my seatbelt on. Like, and I'm like, fuck, was I, like, what the fuck happened? It's like everything just started to, like, I was losing it all. I was like, dude, what the fuck? Like, did I do something wrong? Was it a green light? Did I have a green light? Like, I'm panicking, because I'm like, fuck, I'm going to lose my job. Like, what if, you know, this other person's hurt? And then I hear the woman of the APD officer, and she's, like, screaming, and she's like, hey, he's over here. And I can see all these flashlights, and it was my lieutenant and my sergeant, and then our canine. All three of them came up at the same time. And I remember them coming up, and my lieutenant was asking me, like, what hurt? And I was like, everything. And he was like, okay, well, what specifically hurts? And I'm like, my back and my mouth and my legs. And then the EMTs get there, and as they're getting there, like, my lieutenant and our canine, they're, like, taking all my shit off me. Like, they're trying to get my duty belt off so that way they can, like, take it, and they're taking my vest off. And I get into the ambulance, and now I've got, like, all these EMTs that loaded me up, and they're, like, cutting off my uniform. And so now I'm laying there, like, butt naked, and I'm like, fuck, this is the worst day of my life.
Like, because you were naked.
Yeah. I was like, I remember I said to them, and it kind of made them laugh, because I'm laying there, and I was like, guys, for the love of God, like, it's freezing in here, isn't it? It's because, like, it's like my dick is small. Like, it's cold. That's why it looks like that. And they were like, yeah,
I mean,
man.
it can get pretty chilly in February in Austin.
Yeah. They were like, yeah, man, it's fucking freezing.
So cold.
Yeah. They were like, dude, I feel you. And I'm like, yeah, dude, it's whatever. And I get taken to Round Rock to, like, their trauma center. And I had heard from the EMTs that they were also taking the driver of the other car there too. And so the whole ride over there, you know, the EMTs are talking to me. I don't remember what the fuck we were talking about or what was said. Like, it's all a blur. But I remember getting to the hospital, and I hear them, like, whenever we get there about the same time as the lady who had hit me. And I didn't know anything about her. I didn't know anything about I still don't know anything about her. I don't know what her name was, like, anything. But I hear them as I'm getting gurneyed in through the emergency room door that they're rushing the second driver in for emergency brain surgery. And I was like, fuck, dude, like, what the fuck is going on? They put me in a room, and I'm telling them of, like, everything that hurts. And the nurse goes, and this scared the shit out of me too, because the nurse goes, okay, we're going to give you some meds that'll help ease that pain and, you know, kind of settle you down. And I'm like, okay. And they leave for a second, and they come back, and she's like, all right, we're giving you fentanyl, is what she said. And, of course, as a cop, I'm like, oh, my God, are you guys trying to fucking kill me?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what the fuck? Like, how do you even medically, like, give that? Like, I thought it was just something, you know, like how we see on the streets where if you touch it, you fucking overdose and die.
Right.
And so they give me fentanyl. And I remember, you know, I'm sitting there, and I feel like I'm floating. And, like, my head started to go back, and my mouth was wide open. And the nurse, like, slaps on my chest, and she's like, hey, and, like, grabs me, and I'm like, what? And, like, it fucking scared me. And she was like, oh, she's like, we have to be careful with this stuff. I thought I was losing you there for a second. I was like, what the fuck?
You're like, you gave it to me.
Yeah, I was like, why
I was
are you
just
giving me
enjoying the
this?
trip.
Yeah. I was like, you just killed my high, dude. Like, what the fuck? And then I had, you know, like, they called my dad, and my dad showed up, and I had, like, each of the guys were, like, it was pretty cool. Like, you know, the next city over, Leander, they actually ended up taking majority of our calls in Cedar Park because everybody on my shift wanted to go to the hospital to, like, see me and make sure that I was all right. And so, like, majority of them were, like, showing up and, like, being like, hey, man, like, glad you're okay. And so, like, Leander PD, like, were taking calls in Cedar Park for us, like, during that time until, like, everybody got back into town. Because, like, whenever that call went over the radio that I had been hit, I mean, like, all of my guys showed up. The Williamson County deputies that I had just given a tour to showed up. Like, 3 Leander officers showed up. I mean, like, everybody from every neighboring town, like, flew over there because they were like, holy shit, like, a cop just got hit. Like, what if he's fucking dead? Like, whatever. And then the next day I get released, and I didn't even know, again, anything about this, like, the other car that hit me. Like, I didn't know what happened to her, what was going on. Well, as it turns out, whenever she hit me, she was extremely intoxicated, and she had a bunch of whippets in the car. She wasn't wearing her seatbelt, so she went head first into her windshield. And she went in for, like, brain surgery. She was in, like, a medically induced coma for, like, 2 days, and then her family pulled the plug. And I didn't know any of this. I'm like on leave after the crash. Like I wasn't allowed to come back. And I think it was like a Leander PD officer that I knew who told me. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, this is news to me. Like, I didn't even know any of this. Like, the lady involved in my crash is dead. Like, that's... And, you know, and again, this is still at that time of, like, every bad thing that I was thinking to myself of, like, dude, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, this sucks. I just want to die. Because I had a moment as I was sitting up against that electrical box where I was like, man, why didn't that kill me? I was pissed. I was like, of course I fucking survived that. And... you know, looking back, I don't know how I did. I was told that if I was going 2 miles an hour faster, she would have struck right on my door and it would have killed me instantly. Whenever they did the accident reconstruction, that's what they told me. Like, oh, you're lucky to be alive. And now looking back, I'm like, fuck me, like, thank you. Like, I'm so glad I survived. At the moment, I was like, man, fuck you guys, get out of here. Like, why would you tell me that? I was so close. I was very edgy. But that's what pushed me out. Like, it was just the culmination of how much I hated the work itself and then the crash. And so I had this moment where I was like, all right, I think that's a sign. Like, I'm done. I got out. But again, whenever I got out, I was still very, like, fucked up. So then it was like, I'm not a cop anymore. So now I'm like a full send alcoholic. Like, I'm on 6th Street every single night of the week. I become friends with, like, all these people on 6th, and now I'm drinking for free. I'm fucking not doing okay. Like, I was horrible. And I was eventually able to, like, fight my way back to being, like, a normal functioning human instead of, like, this degenerate who was literally obliterated every single night and waking up on my living room floor, like, drinking half a bottle of Tito's a night. To where I'm at now.
You want more lemonade?
Yeah, and I need to go to the bathroom.
If you go down, don't take the headphones with you.
What is the point of this?
Well, because
that's why we were here.
You'll drag the whole thing with you.
I'll take it with me.
It's a cool box, huh?
Yeah, it's pretty dope.
Yeah. All right, go pee. I'll refill the drinks.
Cool.
And we will continue this epic saga in a moment. Is that the best jalapeno lemonade you've ever had in your life?
Sure is.
Is it the only jalapeno lemonade that you've ever had in your
life?
Correct. I really can't tell you where the thought came from. I was just the last person I made Arnold Palmer's for, and the next person I'm making like imitation blackberry mojitos. But for you, it's like jalapeno lemonade.
Okay.
It's because our relationship has been so spicy. But also sweet.
Pause. You're right. The cat's out of the bag.
All has been revealed.
Yeah.
Do you want another one?
I just put one in.
What flavor?
Spearmint.
You ever had smooth?
Yeah.
I didn't know it was a thing until Wednesday night.
Yeah. I've had smooth. I like it. My favorites right now are just spearmint or cinnamon.
Cinnamon's so good, but it's always sold out.
Mm-hmm.
It sucks. Next time, is there not even legal, is there a limit to how many you're supposed to be able to buy at one time?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
Because I was at QT the other day and I saw a guy buy, in one go, he bought 8 of them. And he, like, walked out like this, holding them. I was like, Jesus Christ, dude.
Well, let me play devil's advocate to the stranger I know nothing about.
Well, no, I thought to myself, like, why don't I do that? Because
okay.
They're always sold out, you know? Like, I should be the one fucking buying
right,
all
like
of
if
them.
cinnamon's there, let's just buy all of them. Yeah.
I don't know why. I'm like, well, I'll take 2 of them.
That's that Costco mentality where I like to go and get a shit ton of stuff, and then I'm like, all right, I won't have to leave my house for 3 months except for the gym.
Exactly.
The reason I asked is because the other night I forget what flavors, but let's go with citrus, menthol, and coffee because that's what down there.
Menthol is crazy. That's crazy that you bought that.
Why?
Why don't you just smoke some Camel Crush menthols while you're at it?
Because I don't want to. Because I don't want to.
Cooler if you did.
I don't want to.
No.
You know what's funny is how many shows I watch where characters do smoke cigarettes. I'm like, I don't know why I think you got like Sons of Anarchy.
It's the fucking coolest thing you can do is smoke a cig. Are you kidding me?
It's so cool.
Dude, sitting out in a patio, drinking a beer, ripping cigs.
Ripping fags.
Ripping fags, dude. That is where humans peak.
It's funny because we obviously we don't use that term very often anymore. And there's this there
We say it all the time.
I don't know who I just put into that bucket, but I was at my rock climbing gym and there's like 5 or 6 guys that were visiting from the UK. Oh. And we were in between, me and my group and them there and their group, we're all in between climbs, sort of sitting in the common area. And one of them started talking about, hang on, what did he say? He was like, yeah, I was enjoying my morning fag the other day, and in my head, I was just like, what are you?
No, you're like the same.
Yeah. That's exactly where my head, I was like, this guy's a fucking baller. Like, he has his morning, his midday, his evening, his weekend. Like, he has, like, all of these different categories of his little boys that he's just, like, fucking, yeah. But anywho, we just derailed that conversation.
I don't think we did. I think we're right on track.
Yeah. Are you having fun?
I am.
First podcast experience.
Yeah.
Thoughts so far?
I like it a lot. It's funny because whenever you ask me to be on it, every dude on the planet, whenever you're with your boys, every one of us were like, dude, we should have a podcast. Like, we'd be so funny. Like, we would be like Joe Rogan. Like, it would be the biggest fucking thing. And that's what I thought to myself. Even before you asked me, I thought, man, that would be funny. Like, if he did ask me to go on it, I was like, I feel like I'd have a lot to talk about. And then that's what I was thinking the whole time. The drive over here, I was like, I don't think I'm that interesting. I was like, what the fuck am I going to say? And then I'm sitting there and I was like, what do I talk about? Like, I was scared. I was like, fuck. I'm going to get there.
You hadn't been to an oral board in a while.
I know. I was like, this one's going to be like way more intimate with our...
I'll use this eye so the camera can see.
Oh, my fault.
There you go.
In a totally straight way.
Right, no homo.
Never. Unless it's fun. Then it's like, whatever.
Yeah. No, I have this bit I'm working on in case I ever get the urge to do a stand-up night.
Oh, fuck.
Have I given you this bit before at the gym?
Dude.
Okay. Can I practice?
I'm so scared for you. Yeah, let's do it.
I mean, oh man, I've never done it for real.
I've only done an honest one too.
I've only done this in my head before. All right, so let me pretend like we're actually there. All right. So I almost feel like I need to stand up, but
it is called stand-up comedy.
We'll do our best here. All right, let me get in this headspace now. I'm getting nervous. All right, guys. So here's the deal. I'm not actually gay. All right, I'm the straightest guy in this room. The problem is I have this crippling fear of women. And it's so crippling that sometimes I'm just like, man, it'd be so easy to go up to my workout buddy and just be like, hey, Michael, you want to come over and we'll fuck around a little bit and then order a pizza and play some Smash Bros? So he did. Michael came over, fucked the shit out of him. And then afterwards, we ordered a pizza, some fucking cheese sticks, some cinnamon rolls, and we played Smash Bros. It's fucking heaven. Because are you ever going to get that with a woman? You go up to a woman in the gym, you're like, hey, you want to fuck around? Come over to my place, even though we've never met. Order some pizzas afterwards, play some Smash Bros. Like, that's not going to fucking work. I'm really straight. I just have this crippling fear of women. It goes something to that effect. You didn't laugh at all. Okay, I'm not going to try that.
I need to work on it. Because I feel like that's the hardest thing is like, I used to think to myself, like, dude, I'm the funniest guy I know. I would crush a stand-up. And then I see people, because, like, the premise of that is funny. Like, if you said that in the gym, all of us would be like, oh, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
But imagining it in front of a crowd, like, mixed with people, like, I pictured that right then as, like, on Kill Tony. They would be like, huh. What else you got? And then all of a sudden you're in a, and then you're in a, oh, fuck you situation. And then you're viral for the wrong reason.
So the only reason I'm even like mulling over this thought is I don't know how far you got into Sorry Time's first episode, because granted, it is 4 hours long. But somewhere in there, Isaac told me before I move out of Austin, he wants me to find a stand-up and just try it. And so I've been thinking about, like, what would I talk about?
Yeah.
I also thought of, like, my coming out story could be a really good one with Debbie.
That is funny. That's a funny story.
I told Shay that one, and he was, like, in crippling laughing tears. He couldn't catch his breath. He kept trying to, like, he had a question he wanted to ask me, and he'd go to ask it, and then he would just start laughing again because he couldn't catch himself.
Well, that's how I was whenever you told me. I was like, dude, this woman, like, she probably wanted to fucking kill herself. Like, she repulsed you that much. Like, in her mind, was like, oh my God, what is wrong with me? Like, you probably sent her on a completely different life path after that interaction.
That makes me feel proud.
It should.
I've changed someone's life.
Fucking Debbie. Didn't you try to look her up that time we were talking about it?
Yeah, I couldn't find her.
Yeah, because she's fucking dead.
Maybe.
Thanks.
We all die.
Yeah. Okay.
And there's the moment where we're like, we're out of all right, good episode, and we'll see you next week. Leave a review, like, subscribe, comment. Before we get back to you, there's a thought I had, but I didn't want to interrupt you. That one of my friends, Emily, when I came out of the closet, Emily has, like, very big breasts, and she's my buddy Alex's now wife. But she said when she first started, shout out Alex, when she first started dating him and meeting all of his friends, she was like, I forget how she said it. She said it in a very humble way. I'm going to make her sound like she's very cocky, and she's not at all. But she's like, it was always just, like, when I started meeting all of his friends, they'd all just be staring at my boobs. And I was sort of used to it because they're bigger than, like, most other girls. And she's like, you know how I knew you were gay? She's like, you were always staring at Alex's chest. So she'd be like, I was scanning the room, and I'd see, like, you know, fucking or not Alex, but what was his name? Joe. And he'd be like, oh, I'm not looking at it. And like, she'd be like, all the heads would turn as she scanned the room, and then I would just be like lasered in on Alex's pecs. Yeah. And so she was like, that's how I knew.
That's fair. Is Alex hot?
I think so.
What does he look like?
He's like 6'4".
Okay, you got me. I'm sold. I guess I'll try it out.
That's
all I needed to hear.
Short blonde hair, big pecs, big shoulders. You don't see tall dudes who are also big, but he's not, like, huge. He's just, like, 6% body fat, all muscle and tall.
Well, you know what that makes me think of? Like, imagine if Keaton was, like, over 6 foot.
I couldn't go to that gym anymore.
No.
I would have been kicked out for harassment.
Yeah, I would have been. I would have been fired.
Man, a 6'4" Keaton. The other day he's working out without his hat on.
Really?
Have you ever seen him without his hat on?
Yeah, he would sometimes, but, like,
I haven't seen it yet, but I looked over and I was like, who is that Jew?
He looks Jewish, and then you see his nose, and you're like,
and then he turned his head, because all I could see was the back of his head and all the hair, all of it, the mass. And then he turned around, and I was like, oh shit, that's Keaton. Yeah.
Well, because he's got a dump truck on him. Remember what I told you, what you say whenever someone's got a dump truck on them?
No, what do you say?
You started laughing for like 30 minutes like an idiot, and you said, I'm going to start saying that. Close. Look at the shitter on that critter. Because I said that to him, and I think it just kind of put him off. He was like, what? But it's a good line. Yeah. You should use it.
Before, this won't come out for like a couple months, except I really like how this conversation is going, and I might get excited and just release it next Saturday. We'll see. But there's been this new guy at the gym. I think he's new. Since you've been on their like 1% schedule.
Oh, I actually left fully.
Oh, okay. So tell me if you recognize, if this guy sounds familiar at all. He started coming to the gym maybe like 5 weeks ago. I'd never seen him before, and then all of a sudden I was running into him every night when I get in there on weeknights at like 5, 6 p.m. And he's probably my height, blonde, always wears a backward hat, has tattoos all over his legs and his arms, usually wears a T-shirt and basketball shorts. Skinny white guy, blonde hair. It's coming out of the front of his hat a little bit. And he works out with another dude who's probably like 6'2", really hefty. Not like fat, but just like a big dude. Red hair, also white. They both also always wear like mechanical shirts. It'll be like Bob's Auto Customization Planet or
Couldn't
whatever.
Be straighter. I'm picking up what you're putting down.
But you don't know that because people say that about me. I've never told someone I'm gay, and well, let me rephrase that. Fast forward to today, in like the last 3 or 4 years since I've been out, whenever someone tells me, or I tell them I'm gay, they're usually surprised.
Yeah.
So I'm holding on to hope that the skinnier guy, he's gay too. And, oh, you do know him. Because remember when we were in the gym and I was like, I got my wish.
Oh, the one that went in the sauna?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So you have seen him.
Yeah.
By the
He's
time
a stunner.
You think so?
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
By the time this episode comes out, we'll be boyfriends.
Okay. Wow.
That's my goal. I have a 60-day plan.
Okay. Straight or not, you're getting him.
Hey, even if he just comes on the podcast and I get to hang out with him for a couple hours.
That is a good in for you. So at the very least, you can be like, oh, now I know all about you. We had such a good time.
That's how I found out about Tyler.
Tyler.
The blonde kid.
I don't know if I remember him.
You'll remember. Hang on one second. Pause, everyone.
Yeah, everybody just hold on tight.
That kid. The one in, the one in the middle-ish.
I don't know.
Okay, never mind. It is a good in, though, and that's not why I started the podcast, so I could find out if all the men that I find attractive are straight or gay. Yeah. But it has its purposes.
Yeah. I will say, like, whenever you told me you were gay, I don't think you outright said it. I think you said something gay.
I know what it was.
But it wasn't like a oh.
The very first time we all met, it was you, me, Keaton, Michael, and Marino. And Michael had just gotten a haircut, and he asked us what we all thought. And then he was like, well, David, what do you think? And I said, I think it's very handsome, and it looks good. And then Michael was like, that's awesome, because you're gay, so your opinion counts over all these other dipshits.
Yes. Because I remember it was somebody else had said something that I was like, and in my mind for a second, I was like, man, he's gay? And then I thought to myself, yeah, that makes sense. You just kind of carry yourself gay.
How so?
Like in a good way, not like an annoying one. Like a casual gay.
I'm just a dude that likes dudes.
Just a dude who likes dick.
Is it because the nipples are always out?
That was a big part of it. I was like, you know what?
Straight guys do that too, though.
Yeah, but you can see the difference. Like whenever I wear my cutoff shirt, if my nip starts poking out, I freak the fuck out. I will literally like cover it and I start looking around and I'm like, who the fuck saw that? Like I'll kill anybody if they're like, hey, your nipple's out. I'm like, well, that's interesting because now I have to end your life in this gym.
Now consider this.
Yeah, check this out and shoot them in the face. But no, whenever I told my brother, blew his mind. He talked about that for fucking weeks. He's like, dude, I cannot believe that David's gay. Like he was, and I was like, well, yeah, man, I mean, it kind of makes sense. But my brother just has a horrific gaydar.
Jaden?
Yeah. Because even with Matt.
And Matt is a little bit more obvious, but he could still come off as like a straight dude who
Yeah.
just likes to dress depressed.
Yeah, but you have one conversation with him and you're like, all right, buddy, I'm picking up what you're putting down. Gay vibes. But he talked to Jaden fucking every time we saw him at the gym. And he's so serious talking about like going to gay bars and like doing whatever. And I told him that I had been to a gay bar with some of my friends and how cool it was because I didn't pay for a single drink. And Jaden was there as we're telling this story. And I tell him and he's like, what the fuck? Like Matt with the dangly earring and the bleach blonde hair, he's gay? Yes, bro.
Bi.
Look at him.
He's
Yeah,
bi.
He's gay.
Did I tell you about the story when I got to be the hot girl at the Austin Eagle?
Yes, with the old people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a fun night.
Yeah, that's cool.
Sort of.
And then I did show you the picture of me in high school in the beauty pageant, right?
You showed me the one where your cell phone's over your face and you used to have abs.
No, not that one. I'm talking about whenever I was in high school, they did a beauty pageant. And so they took one guy from each of the grades and like essentially this was 2015, 2016. It was my senior year and dressed us up as girls and did a beauty pageant. And then whoever won was like the prettiest boy girl. And I got done up by all the girls in my class, and I was fucking hot, dude.
Do you have the picture?
Yeah,
Can I see it?
of course.
All right, while he's pulling up the picture, I'm going to do my weekly thing where, first off, thank you for being here. I appreciate the heck out of you guys. Second off, if you are enjoying this episode, please do me a huge favor. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. Go to Spotify and give us a 5-star review there. If it's not letting you, it's because you need to quote-unquote listen to at least 2 episodes first. All you have to do is hit play, fast forward to the very end. It'll unlock the rating score, and you can give us 5 stars. And then jump over to Apple Podcasts, where you can also leave a 5-star review. Scroll down about past about 10 to 12 episodes, and you'll see where you can leave the review. And the reason I would like you guys to do this is because it helps the show grow. And to anyone who maybe resonates with Jacob's story, or Wes, as I like to call him, they might get a lot out of this. They will get a lot out of this podcast. So please help us reach those people, because we don't know where they are, who they are. And if you guys do this small favor for me, I promise you that I will continue to grow the show and bring on awesome guests like Wes Hester for your guys' enjoyment, completely free. We're not monetizing this thing. We're not bringing in any commercials anytime soon. Help us keep it free by leaving those reviews. Now let's see this picture. Oh my God. This is actually you?
Yeah, that's me my senior year in, I guess, drag. I had to hold up the dress because I don't have tits.
That's insane.
That's me. Full face makeup.
How did that make you feel?
You know,
Can you send that to me?
yeah, it was
Do you care if that's on the YouTube version?
no.
Yeah, send
It's
that to me.
fucking sick. You know, whenever it was happening, I was like, oh, this is funny. You know, like it's whatever.
And then you realized
And
you should
then-
be a woman.
And then I was like, man, maybe these people are onto something.
These people? Who are these people?
You know.
The females in your class or the cross-dressers?
The cross-dressers. I was like, you know, this is... Well, at first, I was like, oh, my God, this is scary. You know, I was like, this is kind of weird.
Yeah.
And then whenever I walked out into that gymnasium and everybody saw me and I got this huge fucking scream and everyone was like, holy shit. And I had all... And mind you, I was like prom king, played football, and I had all my boys, and they were like, dude, I'd fuck you. Dude, I'd fuck the shit out of you. And I'm like, fuck yeah. I'd let you. I'm feeling very feminine today. And dude, I went into like a character, man. Like I was walking all fucking sassy.
What was your name?
Jacqueline.
Jacqueline.
Mm-hmm.
Jacqueline.
Yeah,
Jackie,
little
for
promiscuous,
sure. Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Like I'm a lady of the night.
That's wild.
Speaking of ladies of the night, I saw at the new job doing the security thing, I saw 2 genuine Austin prostitutes getting lunch at a gas station. And it was disgusting because they're wearing like those like a dress you just kind of slip over, like there's no shoulder strap, there's no nothing, it's just like the little tube, whatever. You see everything. And they were not good looking. And they came in, and I'm watching them, and each one of them got like 4 hot dogs, and then like Cokes and stuff, and they're paying in cash, and they just, the way they carried themselves, I was like, oh my God. And the dude that I work with, he was like, holy shit, dude, look. Like, there's that's what we kept calling them, like, ladies of the night. And I had a moment where I thought to myself, like, you would think that they would get something other than hot dogs. Like, you think they'd have enough. Like, I need something of a different shape. But they...
What if they were just genuinely in the mood for a couple of dogs?
Dude, I do not give a fuck. Something about it, like, if they would have gotten anything else, I would have been like, all right, they're hungry. But 4 hot dogs each, completely dressed up, I was like, ugh, get out of here.
Did you see Breaking Bad?
I did.
Did they look like Wendy?
Slightly worse.
Oh no!
Yeah.
She was pretty.
Yeah.
She wasn't looking too
No,
great.
it was genuinely off-putting. And
Did you talk to them?
fuck no.
Should I have them on the
I
podcast?
was scared. They would steal your stuff. They would roofie your drink and steal all your equipment and leave.
But now that we know that we can hire cops, I could just hire a couple cops to be here for that episode.
Oh yeah.
If the churches can do it, I can do it.
Yeah. They would do that, and as soon as they walked out, they would fucking arrest them.
Oh, so then the prostitutes probably wouldn't show up. The ladies of the night.
Ladies of the night. Yeah.
The LOTNs.
Yeah. What was I gonna say? Oh, whenever you were doing your little talking to the camera brick thing, I thought about when you said like people who would resonate with my story. So, kind of like going on to that. I don't know if you've ever been, but have you ever gone to therapy?
Let's go with no.
All right.
Let's go with yes.
There we go. So
does it count if it was only 2 sessions over the phone?
Yeah.
Okay, then
I would
yes.
say. So I, after the crash, went to therapy that was mandated by the police department of like, you need to go and like talk to someone. And I don't know, obviously it's different for a lot of people, but for me, I hated it because it's a person who, like their job is to care and like listen to you or whatever. And it didn't really affect me anyway, the money side of it, because I wasn't paying for it. But I thought to myself, like, dude, if I was paying for these sessions, I would be so pissed off. Because it was literally me walking in there, sitting on a couch, some lady I do not know, who was barely older than me also. She was maybe 30. And I'm telling her all of this fucked up shit that I've done and seen and been through. And I could see it on her face of like, shit, fucking A, like listening to me, and like her eyes kept getting wide. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, like, am I a lost cause? Like, why are you looking at me like this? But I found more relief just talking to like close friends and family about it. Like talking to the therapist, I would leave there every single time feeling worse than when I walked in. Because it was just me reliving everything. And then the only thing that I was getting in return was like, your feelings are valid. You need to feel this and like move through it. And I'm like, cool. How? Why am I here? But obviously it's different for everybody. But I mean, if you think that it's something that would help you or you don't have anybody to talk to, then yeah, go for it. But I was thinking about that as soon as you said it, because I'd kind of forgotten about it. And with everything that I saw and went through, like my biggest thing would be like talk to your friends. Because your friends at least know you personally. And they can be like, oh, fuck, dude. Like, they show, like, genuine, like, worry and empathy. They're like, holy fuck, dude. Like, that sucks. Let's talk about it. And it's like, well, I can see how that bothers you because of, X, Y, and Z. And then it transitions into, like, hey, remember whenever we all used to do this? And then it becomes lighthearted. Mm-hmm. And then it helped me, like, move forward. But I don't know if it was the same for you, even with, like, your 2 phone sessions. But, like, I absolutely felt like I was the scum of the earth whenever I would walk out of those sessions. And I went for like 3 weeks and like 2 times a week. And I think one thing that threw me, I said that she was like kind of younger. Well, during the first session, she gave me her phone number. So like for like scheduling purposes or whatever. And I remember I was like in this horrible spot where I'm like partying and doing whatever, and I'm, you know, out being a fucking piece of shit. And it popped up on my Snapchat that she like has Snapchat.
Oh boy.
And it was like trying to add me on Snapchat, and it was like from your contacts, and it was her. And I was like, all right. And so like I stopped going and like deleted it. It's I don't know. It's just something that I thought about, and I was like, dude, it fucking like just talk to the homies.
Do you think it partly could have been ineffective because then you were thinking that she wasn't actually doing it because she liked her job, but she was doing it because she's more interested in you as a person?
Well, that thought crossed my mind later, but like that like being added on Snapchat or trying to be added on Snapchat didn't happen until like I had already been there for like the 2 weeks, like 2 of the 3 weeks. And so I had like one more session after that, and then I was like, it didn't get brought up at all. And then I was like, all right, and I just never went back. So I don't know why she did that or why it was a thing, but it bothered the fuck out of me.
You actually just made me remember something. I think I've talked about it on the podcast before, but I just forgot in the moment. When I was in 8th grade, me and my dad butted heads a lot, and clearly the problem was with the child, not with the parent, you know? So why are you laughing at that?
I'm not.
You literally did. You want some glasses to go with that sour plus psychology
Dude,
face?
it's just the damn jalapenos.
But it's all watered down now. You can't even taste anymore.
My ass. It's like fucking, every time I take a drink, it's like somebody's throat fucking me with
Let
a
me try it
jalapeno.
again. Hang on. Oh, yeah, it is still there.
Yeah. You, side note, you gulp very loud. Every time I take a drink, I can't hear it, and then you do it, and it's like... You can hear it.
It's because I have a very strong voice.
I thought you were going to say strong throat, and I was going to be like, yeah, I bet you do.
I don't suck that much. I don't enjoy it.
Me neither, brother.
You're bringing back so many memories, too many stories to tell. But
so much gay
there is
stuff.
this guy in Sacramento that just loved eating ass, and I let him... I let him a few times, and I'm not going to lie, it felt pretty good, but I never understood it. I'm like, dude, that's my shitter.
Dude.
And this was before bidet days when like only Europe was doing them. Like how clean is that thing really getting when you're just using toilet paper? And like I shower, so it's getting cleaned out there once a day too. But it just always was a very curious thing to me. I was like, why does he like to eat ass so much?
I think it's funny. This has taken such a hard left.
No.
Huh?
What?
I said this has taken a hard left.
And I said no.
The conversation?
Yeah.
It has.
Maybe.
It went from therapists to I let a guy eat my ass in Sacramento.
Oh, it's because you brought it up.
I did not bring up eating ass.
Well, you brought up sucking things.
Hey, you took it. I mean, who knows what I was talking about?
All right, back to psychology for a moment. Unless you had a question about the ass dude.
Oh, I'm so good. I'm like, what's his name so I can avoid him?
I remember his face. Just don't get on Grindr and you'll be
You
fine.
don't even remember the guy's name who ate your ass?
I may have not asked him.
His name?
Because here's what would happen every time. It was the exact same thing. He would bring over a bottle of Kraken rum and some some Dr. Peppers. You ever mix Kraken and Dr. Pepper?
I think we need to... Hold on. I don't know this guy's name. I think I remember his face. He used to bring me drinks. Like, what the fuck are we talking about? You need help? Yeah, let's get back on the therapy thing.
We're podcasting. This is what you do. You take hard lefts.
Okay.
You ever listened to a podcast before?
Oh, yeah. I listened to a lot of them.
Yeah. Anywho. Oh, so he'd bring over a bottle of Kraken and some Dr. Pepper. Such a great mix. One of my favorite cocktails, if it's even a thing, the Dr. Kraken. And we'd put in some drinks with some ice, in some cups, rather, with some ice. And then I'd get a little buzz on, and I'd turn on the TV, whatever show I was watching at the time. I think it was actually Sons of Anarchy, not to bring them up again.
Great
but
show.
I turned on some Sons of Anarchy, and then I put a pillow at the end of my bed, so I was facing the TV, and then I'd just lay down, and I'd get naked, and he would just, like, eat my ass for an hour and then leave.
Wow.
Yeah. It's like a little before bed massage
Okay.
in one place.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's pretty chill. It's like, no strings attached. Just come over, eat my ass, and get the fuck out of my house.
Yeah. I really hope this isn't the first episode that my mom decides to listen to.
Shout out, Mom.
She doesn't listen, and she's admitted she probably never will, which is fine.
Oh, so that's why we're on the topic of eating ass.
Yeah.
Cool.
But back to psychology, I was the problem,
Right.
not my dad.
Naturally.
And so they got me this like Christian therapist. And in the first session, I remember I just talked for like 45 minutes. And I looked up at the clock and I saw it was almost time for us to end. And I said, "Do you have anything that you'd like to say?" And she was like, "No, for the first session, I really just want to get to know you before I start to give any advice or anything." And I was like, "All right." So then sessions 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 go by. And she doesn't say anything. She just sits there and writes notes. Doesn't say a fucking thing. So finally in session 6, I was like, "Listen, I'm not saying anything else until you say something." And this was like 40 minutes in. So I just sort of...
Yep.
And we just sat there in like 20 minutes of silence. And I don't know if she was waiting to like, quote unquote, try to break me to be like the first person to break the silence.
Yeah.
But she didn't. So then in the next session, I went in and she asked me the standard questions, like, how's your week going, blah, blah, blah. And then I said, "I'm not saying anything until you start to give me like some thoughts about what's going on at home." And we just sat there in silence for like an hour. And then when I left, she called my parents and told me that she was firing me as a client because I wasn't being cooperative.
And that's exactly what I'm talking about. Like, it's... they don't know, you know what I mean? They're just like, just listen. And I'm like, your whole job, your whole profession that you've gone to college for, and like this is your passion, quote unquote, and you don't have anything to say.
I could find a homeless person who's good at listening.
Yeah.
And just hand them a legal pad for free and be like, "Hey, can I talk to you about my problems for an hour?" You don't even have to say anything.
Yeah, just write it down.
Yeah. You could draw pictures.
Yeah. Just make me think that you're fucking like breaking my life apart.
Right.
But like you can get more out of like a drunk dude at a bar. You know what I mean? It's like, "Hey dude, guess what fucked up shit happened to me?" And they're like, "Oh, same." And you're having a whole conversation. Or you can pay fucking however exorbitant amount of money it is to go to a therapist and then just feel like shit and have them not say anything to you.
Right. Now, we'll put a disclaimer out there that I'm sure there are good ones out there who say stuff. Because I have a lot of friends in therapy and they claim it helps.
So do I.
I think we got the two bad ones.
The only two. Hopefully.
Hopefully. Why, so afterwards, after the accident, why do you think were you having like an identity crisis, or why did you spiral into that phase of like drinking in 6th Street, and what happened there?
Yeah, I think it was an identity crisis because I, like I said before, I drank in high school, just like at parties or whatever, but I wasn't like fucking crazy. Like I had never smoked weed. I had never done anything because my whole life was my dad telling me, "If you do any of this stuff, you will never be a cop," which obviously isn't true, but it was a way for him to like make sure his son wasn't doing fucked up shit.
Yeah.
And so as I got older and I was, now a cop, and I wasn't making a lot of money, but it was more than I'd ever made in my entire life, and I'm on my own, and now I feel like an adult, and I'm doing all this cool shit and like being involved in all this stuff. Like, I'm a grown man and I haven't done anything. Like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing with my life. Like, I have like no experience in anything. And I think that it's 100% just was an identity crisis. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do the exact opposite. Like, I didn't go to college or anything. So, like, I didn't have that, like, get out of high school, go to college, and go to, like, frat parties and, like, do all this crazy shit, like, when you're young. Like, I didn't have that. It was, at 17 years old, I was on my own, moved to a different city, and was working. So, whenever I left the police department, I was like, fuck it. Full send. Like, I'm just going to be a fucking piece of shit. And so it was just, like, not exaggerating, I had a routine where I would go. Now, granted, this is like after I'd got out of law enforcement, because, like, I would go and I would buy a handle of Tito's. And I was still in my old apartment, and I had, like, I'd already, like, paid a few months ahead, so, and I was, like, all the way to the end of my lease, and so I was just, like, living there and, like, not worrying about it. And I would buy a handle of Tito's. I would wake up in the morning, and this was, like, that era of, like, me where I was, like, super cut, and I was, like, super in shape. And I would make my before I went to the gym with vodka, and I would chug it.
Would you put water in there?
No.
Just vodka.
Just vodka and
pre-workout.
Yeah. And I would leave my apartment, and it's fucking insane that I operated this way. So I was, like, drunk, pretty much. I hadn't eaten anything. I never ate. So, like, I would just wake up, make that, and I would do, like, a full, like, a shaker full of it.
A big shaker?
Yes, not like the little pre-workout one, like a full one you would make, like, a post, protein shake in. Chug it. Almost throw up. I would sit around for a little bit, eat, like, a Rice Krispie treat. And then I would go down out of my apartment. The gym was across the street. I would run to the gym to get my cardio in. It's fucking hot as shit outside. I would run to the gym, feel like shit, go in, wouldn't talk to a fucking soul. And I would have my headphones on, and I would be working out drunk, like, by myself, sobbing, like, wiping tears away and, like, sobbing and working out. And then I would go home. I would drink more. Like, I would get it to about where, like, now this handle's about half full. And I would lay in my living room. I had this big, like a beanbag chair almost, but it was huge. It could fit, like, 3 people on it. And I had it in the middle of my living room, and I would sit on it, and I would, like, watch TV or, like, play video games or whatever. And then I would wait for either one of my friend groups to, like, text me and be like, hey, we're going to the Domain, or we're going to Sixth, or we're going to Rainy. Like, and I'd be like, all right, cool. And then would go party all night, get back home, finish off the last of the Tito's, and then fall asleep, like, on my living room floor, and then wake up, and the cycle repeated every single day. That's all I did for months. And then when I was out of the apartment, I moved in with one of my buddies, because he's like he was in the Army, and he had, like, had 100% disability, and so, like, all of his bills were paid, and he had a house that he owned. And it was the same thing. I started working again. I was working at some, like, manufacturing place, but it was like I had every weekend off. And at this point, I was, like, smoking a shit ton. Like, and I'd never smoked weed in my life. And now it was, like, very readily available to me. And so we had a little tradition there, too, where I would get off work, and Friday nights, me and him and then another roommate that lived, it was 3 of us in this house, 3 dudes, we would go into the garage, because it was, like, a detached garage on the back side of his house. We would get super high, and then me and the guy who owned the house, we would, like, be so fucked up. I mean, because we were smoking dro, is what we smoked all the time.
What's dro?
It's a strain, but if you just have, like, indica or sativa, like, you know, it's just kind of like this mellow high or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Dro, every time that we smoked, it was like this, it just hit so much harder. I mean, you would literally find me like standing in a corner, just like laughing at the wall. Like, I don't know why it affected me so much, but, and so after we would smoke, then we would go into the kitchen and just start slamming shots. And then me and him would rock, paper, scissors on who was driving us all the way to 6th Street. And then whoever lost, all of us would pile in their truck, go to 6th Street. And mind you, we would always get to 6th Street at 9 o'clock, 9 p.m. every single day, because we knew the bartender, and she let us drink for free. And so we would get there at 9. We would take, I'm not exaggerating this, probably 15 shots apiece.
Jesus.
And then drive back home. And that was our routine, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, every single weekend. And then during the week, it was more of this casual, like, we all get off work and it's night and we're, like, still smoking in the garage, but then we would just, like, slam beers in the living room and watch Family Guy and be, like, dying laughing. So I was on this, like, this horrible, like, path and mind state, like, mental state of, like, I don't know, I guess this is my life. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I just pay him, like, you know, $400 a month to stay here because his disability covers all the bills, so it's just, like, extra spending money for him. And that was it. Like, that was my life. And it was super fucking depressing. And I would, in my room in his house, I had a mattress on the floor and like a chair that he had in that room already, and then my TV sitting on a desk with my PlayStation and my Xbox, and that was it. And like everything that was mine was in that room. That's all I had. Whenever I moved out of my old apartment, I wanted to throw my whole life away, and that's exactly what I did. Like my bed, I had my couch in like storage, like the big stuff in storage, but like I threw my bed away, all my plates, cups, like most of my clothes, like I threw everything away. I had nothing. And it didn't get better until I met my girlfriend now, Cadence. And she was like, you know, way nicer than she should have been to me. Like I was a fucking horrible piece of shit. Not to her, but like I was just, the way that I lived, like I didn't do anything, you know. I had no aspirations or goals anymore. I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. And it like, the way that she was made me be like, all right, like I got to get my shit together. And eventually I did. And I stopped hanging out with all those people. Haven't talked to them since. I don't know what the fuck they're doing now. And then we moved out here and got the job at Gold's just to like have something to do and like get better again. And here we are. But it was, and that's completely skipping over to the whole part of like after my crash, I needed back surgery and I could not get it. I fought with workers' comp for over a year, and they just, to this day, it is still an open case that they wanted nothing to do with. And I don't know why. I had to pay for my surgery out of pocket, like through my insurance. And that kind of spiraled me down too. And that's a big reason why I started smoking, because I was in so much pain and it was just progressively getting worse and worse and worse. I had a herniated disc that sat dormant with me still going out and partying and doing everything for like a year and a half. And then so over that time, I mean, I would wake up in pain, like it was constantly hurt. And it got to a point where I finally was just like, all right, like I'm gonna have to get this surgery done myself. And like, I can't keep waiting and fighting for this, because I couldn't stand up straight. Like I would walk around like a little old person, like hunched over and like holding on to everything. I couldn't stand up for more than like a few minutes. I was basically bedridden. And so like I had absolutely nothing. had no money. I'm fucking bedridden. I had like moved back in with my dad. And then after all of that, it was like Cadence was still there. And I was like, what are you, like, what are you doing? Like, I'm like this little nothing of a shell guy who's like all hunched over and I can't even do anything. And she fucking thugged it out. And I got my surgery and was in recovery for that and had to go to physical therapy. And I don't know why. I have no idea why, but she just like stuck with it. And now I fought my way back up to finding a job that actually my skill set from being a cop applies to, because that was a big thing too, right? It's like the skill set doesn't apply to anything unless I go like be in the military,
right?
Like go join like military police or something. But now I'm in a spot where my skill set applies, and instead of making the $54,000 a year I was as a cop, I'm making $105 entry.
Woo!
Yeah, so it's like the big gamble for her that has started to pay off, you know, but like I don't know why the hell she stuck around, and I don't know where I found the gumption to be like, I can fight my way back. Because, you know, I was at that point of like, I just want to die for so long that I got so pissed off that I was like, you know what, fuck this. I can fight my way back and like do better this time. And it became this like a goal of like, fuck everything else and I can do this. Like I can get back on track, even though I was like at my absolute lowest. And surprisingly, I did. If you would have asked me to bet on myself, I would not have. I would have betted against me. And that's the thing that, you know, I mean, you know, my brother Jaden, that he said whenever I got this job that I'm at now, is he didn't say it to me. He said it to Cadence in my apartment, and I overheard them before we were going to the gym. After I got the job, is he was talking to her, and he was like, man, I'm so happy for him. And she was like, yeah, I know, me too. And he goes, I don't know how he kept going. He's like, I wouldn't have been able to do it. Like, I mean, I was practically homeless for like a year. Like I had nothing.
When you were with the friend that you were paying the $400 to?
Yeah. And then after that, after me and him had our falling out, was like, and then I'm living on my dad's couch, and then he was going through a divorce. And so like he didn't have a lot of time to be like worried about what the fuck I was doing. And at the same time, I'm bedridden. Like I can hardly get off said couch to do anything. And every single day I was going downstairs into his kitchen, and every day I was eating like hot dogs out of a skillet or like a quesadilla. Like it's the only two things that I would make. And like I was just like I was nothing. Like I was like this little shell of a person that was just kind of like hobbling around in his house like a little ghost. And like but that's what like Jaden said. He was like, he's like, it's what he said to her. He said, it's about time that something went right for that motherfucker, is what I heard him say. And she was like, oh my God, I know. And in that moment, I was like, dude, we're so fucking back. Like, I'm good now. Like, I'm happy again. Yeah. Thank you. And I was like, you know, I'm fucking happy again. I'm making good money. I can like actually build a fucking life for myself. Like this is sick. And then like I met, you know, all of our group of guys at the gym, and I was like, and then now at my new job, I'm become friends with all of them super quickly. They're all like prior cops or military, and it has just been fucking awesome, and I love it.
Hell yeah. I'm happy for you, man.
Thanks, buddy.
Wes's return.
Yep. Don't call it a comeback.
Couple questions for you. When you were in the hospital after the crash and all the cops were coming in, did that camaraderie change anything for you? In this, I mean, obviously we're here today, so we know it. Like you didn't stay with the force, but was that an eye-opening moment at all about like, oh man, like,
yeah,
these guys have my back, or at least they're trying to.
Yeah, and with my guys on my shift, that was never an issue for me because I knew that we were all boys and like we would die for each other. It was just the response from the command staff and how it was like I was being rushed back to work. Like, hey, man, how long are you going to be out? Like, come on. And then I had these guys I didn't even know who were like on opposite shifts. Like, I knew their name and nothing else about them. Like, texting me or like saying like, hey, like, we need people, like, you need to fucking come back. Like, quit being a fucking bitch. Like, it wasn't that bad. And I was like, who the fuck are you? Like, you don't know what the fuck that felt like. And, like, you don't know what's wrong with me. And so, like, the camaraderie with all of my guys, like, I was good. Like, I knew that they were my boys. And I still talk to some of them today. But that brotherhood with my shift wasn't enough to keep me there. Because at the same time, I knew that shift, like, my guys on that shift weren't going to stay together forever. Like, even today, like, one of them is a corporal, like, on a different shift. Another one's a sergeant in a different shift. One of them went undercover in, like, our narcotics unit. Another one is a K-9 officer on a different shift. Like, they all branched off into different areas. And I could see the writing on the wall for that as well. And I had been on night shift at that point since I was 18 years old as a dispatcher. Like, I maybe did 1 month where I was like on a day shift whenever I very first started at Cedar Park in field training. And then the rest of it was night shift. And so, like, I was like this, like, I did not go out into the sun. I was never like out to, like, you know how people are and like how I am now, where like you go out on a weekend and like you're at the lake or you're doing whatever and you're doing like normal human being shit in the daylight.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't do that from like 18 to 24 at all. Like, I was never out during the daylight. So whenever I was finally starting to get better and now all of a sudden I'm awake during the daytime and I'm getting like the sun and I'm going out with my family and like we're doing wholesome shit, not just me at 2 a.m, blackout drunk on Dirty Sixth, trying to figure out how the fuck I'm going to drive us home. Like, I think that helped a lot too. But I mean, looking back, you know, I don't regret how everything went. If you would have asked me a few months ago if I regretted it, I would have said yes, that I should have stayed at Cedar Park. Because there was all that time afterwards where I was like, man, what the fuck did I do? Like, I don't have a job. I'm in this excruciating pain. I don't know what I'm going to do. Because if I would have stayed at Cedar Park, I mean, right now I would probably be like a corporal. And like, I wouldn't be making as much as I am now, but I would have been like, I could have said like, oh, I stuck with it. And like, I'm still doing this. And this was like my childhood like dream. Like, I'm still here, even after everything. But I also know that because of how bad things went for me and like how bad I was as a person, I probably would have gotten fired for something. Like, I wouldn't have performed to the standard that you're supposed to have as a cop. And so I don't regret it in that sense, but I do think about it a lot of like how different it would have been if I would have stayed. But I don't regret it at all.
Do you know why you threw everything out when you moved in with your buddy? Or what you thought that would accomplish?
Yeah, I, in my mind, felt so broken and so much of a different person than what I was whenever I had originally gotten everything in my apartment, that whenever I saw, like, pictures of myself, like, whenever I was, you know, just started as a cop, and then, like, the year or two after, or, like, the things I used to do, or the things that I was interested in, and the things that I bought, and, like, how I decorated and everything, I felt like I was living in somebody else's apartment. I was like, none of this is me. This isn't who I am anymore. I'm not a happy, like, hopeful person. Like, I'm this piece of shit who shouldn't have anything nice, and I don't deserve any of this, and I'm going to just get rid of all of it. And that was my mindset then. Like, I was in such a dark place that I was like, I don't care that I won't have a bed to sleep on. I'm getting rid of everything. My mattress at my old apartment, I lived on the 3rd floor. I threw it off my patio, like, in a drunken rage as I was moving out. I literally, like, slid it through the door, and threw it over the balcony and then drove my truck and like put it in there and then threw it in a dumpster. Like I just threw everything away just to like restart. And I did not restart well.
In hindsight, would you, God forbid if like you got to this place again, which you won't, but if you did, would you throw everything out again? Like when you look back on that, were you like, man, that was sort of a waste of time and money?
Yeah, no, I would not do that again. I think after going to that part and then fighting my way back out of it, like if something were to go so awry that I was like falling back into that, I would do it completely differently. I would do it the way that, like when I look back at how I did it the first time, like I wouldn't, my biggest thing was I made very quick, in the moment, rash decisions. That was my biggest flaw, is like I would throw shit away, cut people off, quit jobs. Like I just did everything like in the moment, how I was feeling right then, and it was just no future thinking. I just acted. And I know now I would not do that shit because like it fucked me over, and it made everything so much harder to try to like build back, because it's hard to build back with nothing.
Right.
Like it was just fuck. Like I had to rely on other people. And for me, in the way that I was raised as a man, you're not supposed to rely on anyone else. Like you're supposed to make it happen yourself. And I couldn't do that mentally or physically. And that was the big thing that fucking sucked. Where I was like, man, like I have to rely on my family to like I'm a little kid again, you know, like I have to rely on them to like feed me and like give me a place to stay and all this shit. And I think that was a big driver for me too, to like correct it. So I was like, this is embarrassing. Like I had a day where I was like, this is embarrassing. Like I'm this guy who is living on his dad's couch, like hoping that he fucking bought groceries so that I can go raid his pantry and like eat. And like I'm playing video games all day, and I'm still drinking way too much, and I was still like smoking weed, and it was just horrible. But for sure, I would, if it happened again, I would do it completely differently. It wouldn't be as many like rash decisions.
When you were talking about that part of this story, it made me think of that quote, wherever you go, you will follow, or something to that effect.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like you were trying to purge something out of your life, and you were looking at the wrong thing.
Yeah, I was.
Did, when you were going through the drinking, the smoking period, was there ever a part of you where you thought, like, this is the life, or was it just misery the entire time?
Oh, no. Like, if I was at home, it was pure misery. It was like laying on my floor crying by myself, or like, you know, punching studs so I wouldn't like mess up the apartment and have to like pay extra. You know what I mean? Like,
were you using a stud finder to find studs?
no, I would just do it like, I would just go like,
beep, 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 bam!
Yeah, fuck this stud. No, I would go based off of like where your outlet is, because you know it's always attached to one.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so I would just like punch beside it, like I would knock and feel it. I'm like, oh, there it is, and then like just go to town on it until my knuckles were bloody. But yeah, no, it was now, if I was out partying and I was with all my boys and we're like on 6th and I'm fucking drunk and high, I was like, dude, this is fucking great. Why the fuck was I ever a bitch ass cop? Like, this is how people are supposed to live.
Right.
Do whatever the fuck you want. And then I'd wake up and be like, fuck, wrong. Like, this sucks. And then nighttime, I'd be like, yeah, this is great. It was just this stupid fucking back and forth where it was like, I think I'm doing all right. And then I think this is the right move because I'm having fun. And I do have a lot of good memories of that time from like partying that I will remember for the rest of my life. But majority of it is just like embarrassing when I look back on it. I'm like, dude, the fuck was I doing?
You stopped being Wes and you started being Jacob.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was being something. I was being a fucking piece of shit. Yeah. And now you know, like I've been saying, like it's completely different now, and it's like, man, like I just can't wait to, you know, buy land and get the fuck out of the city and have some fucking animals and get married and have kids. Like that's all I want now. If you would have asked me that like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, if you would have stumbled across me on 6th Street, no. I'm like, I'm going to fucking die doing this. Like, this is it.
Just remind me of this quote. You ever watch The Great on Hulu?
Mm-mm.
It's a show like back in the 1800s, I think, but there's this one part where the king says he's like in a really bad place about his marriage, I think, and he goes to like one of his like his top rated, you know, like officials, and he's like, let's just give up everything and drink until our organs fail.
Yeah. That was literally me. Literally, because, you know, I was like, man. What
Literally?
Literally.
Literally. Okay, that's better.
It was quite literally what I was doing. Because, like, me and my friends, we'd be like, man, we don't have a lot of time on this earth, blah, blah, blah. Like, we should fucking party and do whatever the fuck we want. And my God, that's what we did. And it is not healthy. Like, now, what I can do is, on my days off, I will drink and I will have a good time and I will be with my new friends and family, and, you know, and even like if I'm like last weekend I was with my family and I got fucking blackout drunk again, but like I'm not at a fucking bar on Dirty with a bunch of strangers like trying to get home. I'm like sitting on a patio with my family and like my brothers just fucking drinking, and then like passing out on my dad's couch, and then waking up and being like, oh, that was fun, and then watching football all day. You know, like it's like a healthy version of it where it's just like us, like as a family, just dicking around and like having fun, not a violent alcoholic spree that could have killed me or someone else.
You want another one, or are you good?
Are you gonna have another one?
Probably.
Do you have any alcohol in here?
I don't.
Oh yeah.
I don't. I'm on a dry spell right now, and it's easier if it's just not here. Sorry. I feel bad. You can come back, and we'll do one on like a Friday or a Saturday night. How about that?
Yeah. It's funny because I have like a 12-pack in my fridge, and I almost brought it. And then I thought to myself, like, man, it is a Sunday morning. Maybe I shouldn't. And then I thought, surely he'll have something if he does want to drink. And then I completely forgot until I asked just now that you said you were going dry.
And then as soon as you said, too, when you first were like, I wish this wasn't a mocktail, I was like, you know what? It is Sunday, and I'm not going anywhere today. Now I wish I was more prepared. But it's okay. We'll be good. Well, I will be. I don't know what you plan on doing after this, but.
Yeah, I might drink a little bit. I do go back to work tomorrow, but I'm going from like a day shift to like a mid shift, I guess you want to call it. Like I won't go in until like noon.
Well, we should do a hang on like a Saturday. Get our posses together or something.
Yeah, I mean it would be tough now because the schedule I'm going to, my only days off are going to be a Tuesday and a Wednesday.
Whatever. You don't want to hang out unless it's on a podcast. That's fine.
Yeah, this is my last weekend off.
We'll do a Tuesday afternoon podcast.
Dope. This is so cool and awesome.
This is so.
Yeah.
Let me refill these. Do you want another one, or are you just gonna stick with one? I'm gonna get another one.
Yeah, I'll have another one.
Okay.
It's nice to have something to drink.
You want me to add some extra jalapeno to this one?
No, thank you.
Okay.
Preach.
Of course. Yeah, there's nothing here. I double checked the cabinet just in case. I was like, I wonder if there's like a bottle that I forgot about, but it's very empty right now.
Darn.
How'd you and Cadence meet?
Her mom was a dispatcher at Cedar Park, so like I worked with her, and then I don't know exactly how. Cadence is the one that found me. She like followed me on, I think Snapchat or Instagram, one of the two, and because of her mom, and then that's how we started talking. That's how I met her, and the first night I met her was my birthday, and she came out to my dad's house. We were having like a birthday party for me. That was the first time we met.
Why do you think she stuck around in the beginning stages? No idea?
No fucking clue.
We'll get her on.
Yeah.
You want to call her?
She's like, I don't know either. No, she's with her friends.
Okay. They can all jump on.
Oh.
You can put it on speaker.
They start bullying me.
Aw, don't bully Wes. All right, here's a question for you. You don't have to name him or her's name, but what's like the top like dog in the Austin PD? What's their title?
For Austin? Or like where I was?
Either. Cedar Park. Let's go with Austin since we're in Austin.
I don't know who their chief is right now.
That's the title though, is chief?
Yeah, chief of police.
All right, so let's say you were the chief of the Austin Police Department. I'm going to ask you a series of 5 questions.
Okay.
What do you think I'm going to ask?
I don't know, but I'm just going to kill them all, whatever it is.
Okay. If you were the chief of the Austin Police Department, what police activities would you stop? And I don't mean like, we'd stop all burglary. Maybe there is something in here.
What the fuck?
Wait, let's try that again. Burglary.
You having a stroke? Do you smell toast?
Burglary.
Burglary?
Theft.
Theft.
So I don't mean stop as in like, we're going to stop all theft and crime. I mean, is there anything that is part of your guys' like mandated responsibilities where you're like, no, this should not be on the APD anymore?
Yeah, mental health calls.
I knew you were going to say that.
100%.
I agree. Yeah.
And most cops would agree with that. And here's what I'll say, though. So, like, most agencies, Cedar Park included, they have a mental health team. So it's like officers, and that's their primary thing. Like, that's what they're passionate about. And so they like to respond to mental health calls and, try to help people, which in and of itself is fine. That's good. I just don't think that it should be a cop's responsibility to try to like get somebody into a mental health facility and make sure that everything is squared away with them that way. I think that it needs to be more, because you're talking mental health, you're talking more like this is something medical. Like this is like something is wrong with their head, like whatever it is. Like everybody's had, depression or whatever. But it's like a chemical imbalance. Something is wrong medically that they need help, especially if they're in a full-on like psychotic break. And now I could understand like law enforcement still needing to respond if they're violent, but I think that needs to be something more that EMS and like, that they would deal with. And in some states that is the case. Like I've seen videos where it's like the EMTs are the ones that take them, and like the officers will just like write the report to articulate why this person needs to go to a mental health facility. But like for us, you don't call EMS. Like it was, here's what they said and why they should be committed. You write the report, and then you yourself put them in your car and drive them to the mental health facility and like get them like taken in based off of your like report, and it gets signed off by a doctor. That should be EMS's responsibility, not cops. Like it makes no sense. And you're tying up an officer for however long it takes to even deal with this person, and then get them in your car and write the report and transport them there. Like you're talking at the minimum, if you're like super quick and everything moves, like an hour and a half of a cop not being on the street to stop criminal activity because they're dealing with this.
Like burglary.
Like a burglary. Yeah. Like a boogerly.
Our arms look great on camera, by the way.
Do they?
Yeah, we should both only wear black.
Shit.
Look at this.
So
mic. Okay, so you're still chief of police. So it's completely in your power to do whatever you want. What would you do less of? So you're not going to stop it completely, but it's like, let's scale this back a little bit.
I don't know. Scaling back, I would probably, I don't know if you know this, and this is a thing that I think is fucking ridiculous. This would probably be my answer. So, most agencies have a form that people can fill out where they say, like, hey, we're going on vacation. Can you watch our house? And it gets put on a list, and it was always called, like, vacation watch. And so it's like empty houses that we would have to divert our patrols to drive by this one specific house and just look at it and be like, yep, doesn't look like anybody's broken in. And then just drive away. It is the most useless fucking thing ever. If somebody's breaking into a house, especially, like, we're talking like the middle of the night,
Mm-hmm.
I can assure you they are not going to kick in a front door and start turning on lights.
Right.
They're going to go around the back. They're going to go through a window or go through a back door. They're going to leave all the lights off, and they're going to get in and get out. Me driving by the front side of your house and glancing over in the middle of the night, and, like, not even a glance. Like, I would turn on my spotlight and, like, try to look. And I'd be like, all right, looks good. That shouldn't be, because like, now I have to make sure that, like, 2 or 3 times a night, I'm getting off of the highways and I'm not doing as many traffic stops and I'm going into this specific neighborhood to look at this specific house. We already do that. Like, we go into neighborhoods specifically looking for burglars, whether it be them breaking into cars or houses. Like, you always roll through. And a lot of people don't realize that because you're asleep, but, like, we drive through neighborhoods 1, 2 in the morning with our, like, sideways, like, they're called alley lights,
Mm-hmm.
like, on the top. It's like these spotlights that go either way, and then your takedown lights, like the bright ones that come out of the bar up top, lighting up this whole street, and just slow roll down it with your windows down listening. You do that anyway. And so to be like, oh, this house, they're not there, so make sure you're looking. No. I look at it anyway. Like, I'm not going to divert what I'm doing to make sure I'm looking at this one house, like, a minimum of 4 times a night. That is the dumbest thing. I don't even know if APD does that. I would imagine they don't because they're severely understaffed and they have a insane call volume. But that's what I would be like, we're not doing this. And if we do, there better be a fucking really good reason as to why.
There have been 1 or 2 times, and I wonder if they were just doing this, where before I go to bed at night, especially during the wintertime, I will have every window open in this place, and I will get it down to like 50 degrees. And then right before I go to bed, I'll close everything, close the curtains, jump into bed where I can get under like 7 blankets. Dad will join me. It's a very comfortable way to sleep.
Right.
And there have been a couple times where I'll still be up and I'll either be in like the recliner or doing a puzzle on that table or whatever, and I'll see a cop car just sort of circle through the place. And I've always wondered, like, did someone... I usually just assume someone get called, and this is a very quiet neighborhood. Just driving up here, you can probably tell, like, there's not a lot of foot traffic, not a lot of people know it's here. And I've always wondered, I'm like, who are they looking for?
Yeah.
Who's causing mischievousness in this neighborhood?
It could be one of 2 things. It's either, like, a lot of the times we would just drive through apartment complexes, because whenever you're on patrol, the biggest thing is, like, being seen. Like, if people are like, oh, the cops are around, a lot of people that are thinking about doing something likely won't. So they're like, oh, shit, cops are out tonight.
Same reason you put cameras up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, oh, shit. So it could be something as simple as like this officer was just driving by and was like, fuck it, I'll just look in this complex and like see if there's anything going on. Or they get called to a specific unit for like a domestic or something, and they're like driving around trying to find the fucking apartment. Because like we had maps of like the layouts and building numbers of every single apartment complex in Cedar Park. So like if we were sent to any one of them, you could like tab over on your computer, and like I would always leave it open, and then you could just like type in the address and it would like pop that one up, and then you could see the layout and like what the buildings were labeled as and like which hallways had like what units in them. So after a while you get to a point where you don't really need it, especially because a lot of the people you deal with, they're like repeat, like it's the same people, the same
repeat
couple.
customers.
Yeah, like you're just always, and so you're like, all right, I know exactly how to get there, and you just go. But a lot of the ones that we didn't deal with often, if something was going on, we were like, oh shit, and like there's like 5 officers driving around trying to find this fucking building, and we're all like on the radio, it's over here on the northwest corner, you know, whatever. And so it's one of those two things. They're either just bored and they're just driving around, or looking for a couple that's screaming at each other.
Okay. Good.
Or a noise complaint. Like, it'd be like, oh, fucking unit below is calling on you because they can hear your TV. Like, we would get called to shit like that all the time.
You know what's funny? In my, at the time, 17 years of living on my own, I've never got a noise complaint. In like college, party days where we got loud, like I've never got a noise complaint.
Yep.
When I first moved to Texas, it was my first week living here. And there was one night where I had Rogan on and I was doing the dishes. And the next morning, the apartment manager called me and she was like, hey, I know you're new. I want to give you a bad first impression of this apartment complex. And you're probably just throwing like a housewarming party, but your party did get a little loud last night. And I was like, are you calling the right place? And she's like, yeah, this is David and number. And I was like, yeah, this is me. And she's like, yeah, no, I don't want to bother you. I just wanted to let you know, like, the party got a little loud last night. And I was like, what party?
This is news to me.
Right. And she was like, well, it sounded like there is a ton of people banging around in the kitchen and there's a lot of voices and the neighbors just didn't appreciate all of the noise. I was like, Cynthia, I was...
Baby.
baby.
Babe.
Mommy. Mommy, I was watching Rogan and putting away, like, unpacking my kitchen. Like, I'm sorry if I got loud, but there's no party here last night. And she kept falling back on the house party thing. She's like, I know everyone wants to throw a party when they move into a new place. I'm like, I didn't throw a party.
I have no friends.
Literally. I knew nobody in Texas yet. I knew nobody.
Yeah.
I had no friends, no family. Thad, you know, you've seen him. He's pretty quiet. He's not making a lot of noise.
His fat ass.
His fat ass.
It was him.
Yeah. Anyways, Chief of Police, what would you continue? What is going exactly perfect?
Oh, fuck. Not a damn thing. Not a damn thing is going perfect in law enforcement.
Is that your answer?
Yeah.
Okay, next question.
Yeah, fucking nothing.
Okay, Chief of Police, what would you do more of?
Interdiction, which is
what?
Like... Interdiction. Get your mind out of the...
I heard intervention.
No, interdiction.
Continue. Does this have anything to do with oral boards?
No.
Okay.
Unfortunately not. Interdiction is like doing like traffic stops or any sort of investigation where you're hunting drugs.
Is there a lot of drugs moving around in Austin?
Yeah.
Outside of weed?
Yeah.
Really? Like what?
Like fentanyl. Fentanyl is a huge problem out here. Fentanyl and meth. You don't see a lot of coke anymore. Like in my time, I've maybe got one guy who was carrying coke, and everyone was like, "Oh my god, like, is this guy rich? Like, what the fuck? Like, it's not like some 15th time stepped on meth. Like, oh, this is nice." But fentanyl is a huge problem. We had a at one point, whenever I was in Cedar Park, we had a shit ton of people like just overdosing, dropping like flies off of fentanyl. And because it was meth that was laced with fentanyl, like it was cut up with it, so they could sell more. And I know that our undercover guys had ended up doing a whole investigation, and they went like, they're knocking over dealer after dealer after dealer until they finally found like one of the supply houses, but it was in Austin. And so like our SWAT team, and this was like still like obviously a few years ago, whenever APD's gotten a lot better, but they were so horrifically defunded after 2020 that like everything fell apart for them, and now they're like building it back up because the city officials are like, holy shit, like our crime is fucking insane now, we need to give the PD their money back. So at that time it was literally like us, like our SWAT team calling and like letting APD know like, hey, we're going to be running an op at this location like in Austin. And so like our SWAT guys would go out and like knock over a house in the middle of Austin and like arrest everybody, take all the drugs, weapons, and then go on their way. Like we had to, because of how bad the drug problem was in Cedar Park, obviously it's not coming from Cedar Park. Like we border Austin. It's all coming from Austin. So like our guys were having to come into this city to knock over houses to try to combat what was happening in Cedar Park. But again, it was because APD was, they had no one. Even right now, APD was so short-staffed, they have a $15,000 signing bonus. Like if you go through their academy and you pass everything and you become an Austin police officer, you get a $15,000 bonus right off the rip. Because like it's like an incentive because they need people that bad. That is an insane amount of money.
Especially if you put it in the context of like, I have a buddy that just got an offer from Facebook with a $70,000 signing bonus.
Yeah.
And so it's like we got these tech people who are getting like a $70K bonus.
Yep.
And then you have like police and teachers almost also come to mind because I was in the barbershop last week for my beard. And
obviously.
And the client after me, my barber really likes it when his clients don't feel the need to come in and then leave. He doesn't mind if you like show up early, shoot the shit, talk to the other guys in the place. And so I'll usually try to show up a little bit early and I'll stay a little bit afterwards. And the teacher was telling me that he's about to retire and he's been doing it for like, I think he said over 3 decades, and his salary 2 days like $68,000 or 64. It was somewhere in the 60s. So like, that's so low.
Yeah.
Your salary, your annual salary as a veteran teacher who's about to retire is less than the college grad who's about to get a sign-on bonus, not even regardless of his salary.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Well, and you think about it too, for that teacher, whenever he retires, obviously he's not going to be getting that salary that he's making right now for the rest of his life. It's going to be a little bit more, a little bit less.
Right.
So now I'm sure with that amount, especially in the Austin area, if you're making that in the Austin area, you are not, you're struggling. Austin is so fucking expensive because, even now, like with what I'm making, I'm less concerned with my rent. Like I was very concerned if I was working at Gold's. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
And it was like fucking $11 an hour. Again, this guy, he's been doing it for over 30 years, so he probably like has a house that he's owned and paid off for a long time. He's
still renting, and his landlord is selling the house. So he also just had a surprise move sprung on him. And he lives outside of Texas because of the pricing. And so now he just got told this. So he's like, now I have to figure out how I stay in Austin, but find someplace I can afford.
Good luck. Unless you're like in the slums, like in the fucking ghetto. It just sucks, dude. Like teachers, first responders, they don't make shit. And that's what was like another thing for me, where I was like, man, I could go to work, pull over the wrong car, and if I got shot and killed instantly, I'd be lucky. But like if I get fucking shot up and now I can't work, like I'm just fucked.
Yeah.
Like I don't have anything else to do. I don't have any other skills to fall back on, and that's what, like, a piece of advice that my dad gave me, and that I would say for anybody who's like wanting to go into law enforcement is, if you want to go to college first, do that. Do not get your degree in criminal justice. There is everybody who wants to be a cop thinks I have to go to college and get a criminal justice degree first. You do not. That just, if anything, makes it even harder, because if something were to happen and you have to get out of law enforcement, what are you going to do with a criminal justice degree?
Law, maybe?
No. Because now you're talking about you have to go back to college and go to law school. Like it has nothing to do with just a criminal justice degree. Like criminal justice would like move you along, like forward in law enforcement. So like my dad, as he promoted, he needed to have like that degree like higher up. But he didn't do that right off the rip. Like when he went to college and he did like his associates, like the 2 years, he got it in like sports medicine, because that was another thing he was passionate about. Just in case something happened and it fell through and you can't be on the streets anymore, you can fall into another career based off of that degree. But I know a guy who I work with right now in this security spot, and he has his master's in criminal justice because he was in the military and he was like military police. And so he was like, oh, I need to have this. It's completely useless for him now. He says it all the time that he wishes he would have done something else. Like, like we were talking about the tech job. Fucking find something in college that goes in line with like tech, business, something, like, just in case.
Yeah.
So like anybody who's like, oh, I'm gonna be a cop, but I want to go to college first, so I'll do criminal justice. Wrong move. 100%.
All right, final chief of police question.
Okay.
You're not tired of these yet, are you?
Uh-uh.
It's the last one. What would you start? What's something that APD is not doing at all right now that you think they could be doing?
Nothing really comes to mind, because they are building everything back. Now, 2 or 3 years ago, it would have been to bring back their traffic unit. I'm sure you drive in Austin, people are fucking insane, and they drive like over 100 miles an hour. Oh. Killer.
It's funny because we're friends with her too, but if he sees any human through these windows, they're an enemy.
Yeah.
He's guarding his castle,
Yeah, he is. Little sausage. Yeah, it would have been their traffic unit, but they've brought it back now that they're getting their funding again.
They got rid of their traffic unit?
Yeah.
What's the I know it's sort of implied in the name, but what do they do exactly?
They do like your typical traffic stops. They run like DWIs. They do crash investigations, like anything that involves like the roadways and any crime that could be committed on the road. Like that's their whole thing. And like they do, if there's like a fatal car crash, I mean, that's a whole separate type of investigation. Like they have to do a whole accident reconstruction and show exactly like how fast each vehicle was going, who did what. And it's basically like a homicide investigation, just from a automotive side, where it's like, what was this driver doing? Were they under the influence? And it's a whole thing. But after 2020, with the big defund the police movement, APD had to like get rid of every other division they had other than like patrol. So it was just like your normal guys that you see just responding to calls. And so I had a buddy who he still works for APD as far as I know. But he told me years ago that after all that, if there was a single call, like holding, like somebody had called 911 or like just called for like some sort of police intervention in anything, if there were calls on their board that like needed to be responded to on their computer, they were not allowed to do traffic stops. And it's Austin. There is always calls on the board. So everybody started to pick up on this of like, man, I don't see any cops on 183. I don't see any cops on 35. And it became such a big deal that this was happening that Highway Patrol, like the state police, they ended up sending in a huge team of troopers into Austin specifically to help APD because the city council had taken all their money away. And so we had troopers that were now running traffic on all the highways, and they don't really respond to like your typical calls like a normal city cop or county sheriff would. Like they pretty much only do traffic stuff, but they were trying their best to like help out APD. And so now you have troopers responding to like domestics and shootings and stuff like that, which they typically don't unless they're in some like small town and something happens and they're like, oh shit, well, this little local agency of 3 officers needs another gun. I guess I'll go help. But, you know, they're building it back now, thankfully. They're getting a lot of their funding back, so hopefully everything starts to calm down a little bit in Austin, because it was fucking wild for a minute there. Like during my party era where I was out on 6th Street, at least 2 of the times that I was out, I was there on dirty whenever there was a shooting. And like you could see it happen and hear it. And you have all these Austin officers like what the fuck is going on? Now you got people fucking running all over the place. We're getting shoved back into the bar by bouncers, and they're like locking the door. And as far as I know now, I mean, it still happens, right? But it's a lot less prevalent than it was like 2-3 years ago.
Sounds like it was almost the wild, wild South for a little bit.
It was. That it was. It's a very jalapeno-y drink.
You're welcome.
Preach.
Without looking at anything, eyes right here. How long do you think we've been talking for?
I'd say like 2.5 hours.
3:18.
3 hours, 18 minutes?
Yeah. Fuck. Goes by quick, doesn't it?
It really does.
Dude, we're not wrapping up quite yet, but we're getting there. First off, thank you for being here. This was super fun.
Swear?
Yeah. Swear.
Nuh-uh.
Uh-huh.
On God.
Type she. No cap. Dead ass.
All right, thanks for tuning in, everybody. Before he embarrasses himself.
Hopefully you had fun.
I did.
I don't know if the drinks were enjoyed, but
I actually like it. I think I'm gonna. I think I'm into jalapeno drinks now.
jalapeno martinis are really good, and jalapeno margaritas.
I have had a jalapeno margarita, but I was already fucking blackout drunk, and so I was like, "This is atrocious," and I threw up.
The only jalapeno thing I think I haven't done yet is something with like whiskey or scotch or bourbon. But I bet think about like a jalapeno old fashioned.
No.
You don't think that'd be good?
Dude, I cannot drink whiskey anymore.
Okay.
I don't drink darks.
Mmm.
During my crazy era, this is why I don't drink whiskey, is I was like, I'm a fucking man.
Right.
You know, like I'm going to drink fucking whiskey like a cowboy. And so I go to the liquor store and I buy a fat-ass bottle of Maker's Mark. Wrong.
Oh.
I chug half of it in the parking garage at the Domain, party all night, drinking God knows what I drank, get back in my truck, I drive to my old apartment, I'm sitting in my truck, and I had I ate like a shit ton, like whenever I was at the Domain. I had like fucking 6 slices of pizza or something absurd. And so I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh man, I'm kind of sobering up. Can't have that. I reach over. Bless you.
Excuse me.
I reach over, grab that bottle, and drank the other half of it. So I had an entire bottle of Maker's Mark in one night. I remember sitting there in my truck for a little bit, and I was going to walk inside after I chugged the rest of it. I did not make it inside. I woke up with my lower half of my body underneath my truck. And I'm laying in the parking lot, like with my hands like this. And the guys, like the landscaping guys that were like mowing and like leaf blowing and shit, saw me and woke me up. Like, hey, are you all right? And I was like, oh shit, yeah. Haha. Fell asleep. And I got up and went upstairs and I threw up like 8 fucking times. And then fell asleep on that beanbag. And I have tried my hardest to get back into whiskey, because it is a very manly drink. And I just cannot fucking do it. Ever since that night, I cannot fucking do it.
Yeah, that'll do it. I don't have a story to go with this one, but if I never drink Jack Daniels again, I'll die a happy man.
Yeah.
There's one night where we just went too overboard with it. I went too overboard with it. And a couple months ago, someone asked specifically if we could have Jack and Cokes while we were podcasting. And I said, sure. I said, yeah. I just told him yes. And so I go to Total Wine and More, and I got what I wanted for me. And then just even seeing the bottle,
Yeah.
I was like, oh. And so then at the end of the episode, I was like, I got the bottle and all the Cokes, and I was like, here, take this with you. And he's like, you don't want it? And I was like, I really don't.
No.
It will sit here either A, forever, or B, until you come back.
Yeah. No. It's horrible. Well, I'm the same way with tequila. I still can't drink tequila after I went to Mexico. I had an ungodly amount of tequila in Mexico. I have pictures of me asleep on a balcony. I just slept outside every night. I was there for 9 days, all-inclusive resort, and I was drunk 95% of the time.
Was this during your spree?
Kind of. That was like right at the beginning.
Mm.
Like I was already kind of going out and partying. And it was a family vacation. It was my my dad and his ex-wife and then my brothers. But it was also with like all of their friends, like the adults, and then like their kids who were like friends with my brothers. And I was invited along, I think because they felt bad, because I was like all depressed and I was still a cop, I was just like hating life. And they asked me to go. And I told them, I was like, okay, I will go. I gave them fair warning. When they asked me to go, I said, I will be a problem. I'm not going to be like just relaxing on a beach. Like I am going to be there to fucking party. And they were like, oh, haha, yeah, that's fine. You deserve it. I was like, okay. And I fucking did. And I was obliterated every single day, like horrifically. Me and Jaden would drink tequila sunrises for breakfast every day.
Mm-hmm.
I hit a shot record in Mexico. Me and Jaden, my brother, had drank so much, so consistently, that everybody at the resort knew of us. They were like these Texas brothers drink an unholy amount. And we would be walking around and people would be like, oh, we're the Texas brothers. And we're like, yeah, that's us. So we were at a swim-up bar, and there's all these people around. And me and Jaden were just taking shots kind of unpromptedly, like we were just drinking. And we were about 5 deep. And a crowd starts amassing around us. And they're like, oh, you two should go shot for shot and see who falls first.
Oh, no.
And we're like, all right. And so here we go. We got a whole bunch of people hyping us up. We got to 28.
Jesus Christ, I would have died.
Yeah. So we
Even me, like, when I,
Yeah.
like, wow.
I mean, but at this time,
Had you ate before?
no. I was a very bad alcoholic. Like, I was drinking, and this was probably like our 4th or 5th day there. So, like, it was to a point where I would wake up shaky, and I was like, I need to fucking drink. So we got to 28, and Jaden is sitting on a stool that's like in the water, you know, so like the water's like kind of up here.
Seems problematic.
Yeah, so he's sitting there. I'm standing. And of course, we're taking him like very quickly. So it hasn't really hit, you know, like we're maybe like, you're probably feeling the effects of like the 10th or 15th because we are legitimately like foomp, foomp, like we're just going. And
oh my God.
so Jaden's sitting there, and I look over at him, and I'm like, "Hey, you all right? How you feeling?" Because he's holding it in his hand, and he's just kind of like staring forward. And then he looks at me, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm good." And he starts to like pick it up, and then I just see his head go back, and he just falls back into the water. Boom. And he sinks like a fucking rock. And I'm like, "Oh, fuck." And then our cousin was there. And so me and him both pick him up, and we get him out of the water, and he's like coughing and shit, and he's laughing. He's like, "Oh, fuck. Like, what the fuck is going on?" And in that moment, and Jaden will tell you the same thing, I have never in my life seen my father more disappointed. As he walked over, as me and our cousin Gavin are carrying Jaden's like limp corpse over to the edge of the pool, and all these workers are running over, and they bring a wheelchair.
Oh.
And they put him in a wheelchair, and he's sitting there like with his head all to the side, and he's throwing up all over himself. And they wheeled him back up into the room. And so I turn around, and everybody starts cheering, and they're like, "You won." And I was like, "Yeah, I guess." And now it's like really starting to hit me, and I'm like, fuck. And they're like, "Well, keep going. You got to get to 30. I was like, fuck, all right. I get to 30. And now, that's very clearly, obviously, the most drunk I've ever been in my entire life. And in hindsight, I don't know how the fuck I even survived it. It seems like a lethal amount of alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
But I got up to 32. And then I was like, okay, I'm done. And I crawl out of the pool. Thankfully, I threw up immediately. Like, I threw up a shit ton. And after I threw up, everything else is kind of bits and pieces. But I remember that night we had a dinner planned at like this fancy fucking restaurant on the resort.
Oh boy.
And so I can't find anybody. I don't know where Jaden is. I don't know where my dad is. Everybody's gone. And the sun's starting to go down. And I'm so drunk, I don't know where the fuck I am. And so I just start walking of where like I kind of think, because this resort was huge and fucking confusing, and all these hills, and like the buildings all look the exact fucking same that you sleep in. Well, we had made friends with this couple. They were young. They were both like 18, and they were from Colorado. Trey and Kara were their names. And I'm walking, and I could hear somebody yelling my name, like from up high. And I'm like,
Jesus?
yeah, I was like, oh shit, I'm in trouble. And I like look up, and I see them, and they're standing on a balcony, because they were like on the 4th floor that like overlooked the pool. And Trey is yelling my name, and I'm like, hey. And he's like, are you okay? And I'm like, no. And he was like, haha. And I'm just staring at him, and he's like, wait, like for real? Yeah, I know. I'm like,
I want to say that.
and he was like, oh, don't move. And they like ran down and like got me and took me back to like the room where like all the boys were staying in. And they knock on the door. That thing flings open. All of like my brother, my baby brother, all of their friends, like all the dudes are in there. And I walk in, and they're like both leading me in, and everyone's like, oh shit, there he is, ah. And everybody's throwing shit and like screaming and like dapping me up. And I'm like, the fuck is going on? They're like, we thought you died. Like, we couldn't fucking find you. And I was like, yeah, it looks like you guys were looking really hard.
Right.
They're all like fucking chugging from a bottle in this room. And, well, side note, I actually forgot before Trey and Kara found me, I don't know if you know this, but vapes are illegal in Mexico.
No, I did not.
And I was fiending bad because I had snuck 2 on the plane, but I was so drunk and I had it in my back pocket and I got in the pool and completely drowned it. There was this couple from California, and I was talking about how bad I wanted a vape, and they were like, oh, here, you can hit this. And I was like, cool, I appreciate you. Cop, mind you. I take this fat fucking rip, and as soon as it like got through, I was like, that's not nicotine, that is a THC card. And so I'm like, and I hadn't smoked weed at all at this point ever in my life. And so I like exhale it, and I'm like, well, the damage is done. And so I hit it like 8 more times. And so I was extremely crossed by the time I walk into the room with everybody. And I fall asleep. I pass out on the fucking couch. Jaden wakes me up, makes me put on like shirt and pants because we're going to dinner, like a polo or whatever, because I'm wearing like swimming trunks and a wife beater. And I remember sitting at that table. I have bits and pieces of dinner where I'm like falling asleep, and I'd wake up, and all the like adults, like the parents, are like getting pissed at me. And like, look at this fucking piece of shit. Like, why is he here? And Jaden is like trying to like keep me awake, and he's force feeding me bread from the table. And I don't remember walking back to like the room that night. And I just remember waking up the next day, and I was on the patio under a table, and I was woken up by the maids that come in every day. And I felt so bad because I'm laying there, and they're cleaning up this fucking pigsty of like fucking vodka bottles. There's beer cans all over the place. There's fucking cigarettes everywhere. The table that I'm sleeping under is like covered with like an unholy amount of like cigarette butts, like 4 or 5 empty bottles, and like 30 beer cans. And I felt so bad that I got up and I pulled out my wallet, and because they fucking loved it whenever you tipped them with like American cash. And there was 2 of them, these 2 ladies, I gave them each a $50 bill, and they were like, oh, thank you so much. And they were like hugging me and stuff. And I was like, all right, now I feel better. And I went and I got in like a little lawn chair, and I'm sitting there staring at the ocean. And I felt like ass, obviously, and I felt sick. I'm staring at the ocean. I threw up on myself. I kept looking at the ocean. The second time I threw up, I was like, all right, let's not do that again. Off the side. And I fell asleep, staring at the ocean. I probably should have died. But I can't do tequila anymore.
What a story. I'm glad you're alive.
Dude, same.
I have been at those dinners. I can't think of the exact one right now, but when you've been day drinking and then you get there and you're just fighting with everything in you to like remain conscious, and you're looking at the menu thinking like, all right, what can I put down right now? What on this looks like feasible? There's something I wanted to ask. Oh, before Trey found you, you reminded me of this night when we all went out in Sacramento and downtown, and there was a group of like 12 of us maybe, and at one point one of the couples was like, all right, we're gonna go, will you guys keep an eye on David? And long story short, that kept getting like passed on to someone else, to a point where the last homies that left thought there was like 2 other groups there that were keeping an eye on me. So at one point I start to wander the bar, and this club in particular had like 4 different dance floors with a bar in each of them. So it was a pretty relatively large club.
Yeah.
And I realized like none of the people around me are my friends. And so I go into the next bar, Can't find any of them. Next bar, can't find any of them. Final bar, can't find any of them. And I start to panic.
Yeah.
Like, where is everyone? And this is before Uber. This is before Lyft. Someone else had driven me out there. So even if I wanted to drive, which I'm so glad I couldn't have,
Yeah.
you know, I had no car. At the time, I think I was even still using a flip phone. So it's not like we had maps we could pull up where I could put in like one of my buddy's addresses. And so I remember just wandering the streets of downtown Sacramento, half blacked out, half conscious, and just like in this panic of not knowing, like, where am I going to sleep tonight?
Yeah.
Where is everyone? Somehow, some way, I stumbled to my buddy Justin and Kayla's place. And I'm like banging on their front door. When I found the building, I was like, oh my God, it's right here.
Yeah,
it is.
I made it.
I made it. I don't know how I made it, but I made it. I go stumbling up to their apartment. I'm banging on the door. And they open it and they're like, what are you doing here? I'm like, it's the only place I could find.
All pitiful.
Like, they all left me. I was like, you guys left me. They were actually the first people to leave, who were the most sober, and were like, hey, we're dipping out. Can you guys keep it? So they told me, they were like, no, we asked so-and-so and so-and-so and so-and-so to keep an eye on you. And they said they would. And I said, they're all gone.
Yeah. And
so they brought me in, let me sleep on the couch. And we eventually found out what I just told you, where everyone just passed the quote unquote blame off to everyone else. I mean, I made my own decisions that night. Like, you know, so some would say like, oh, the blame is on you, David. Like, you should have been more responsible or whatever. But I will say, in my defense, I had a DD for a reason. And it was because I was planning on getting fucked up that night.
Yeah. Like, if you have everything planned out, it's like, I'm getting fucking trashed tonight. You know, everybody kind of takes turns.
Right.
Like, tonight's my night, and you guys need to fucking make sure that I get home safe. And they didn't do that for you.
No, they didn't.
Fake friends.
And I left for Texas.
And here we are. Who would have thought?
Dude, Wes, this was a fun time. This was a real fun time. Thanks for coming on the show.
Absolutely.
Did you have fun?
I did. I like it a lot.
Are you going to start a podcast now?
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out what to call it.
Wes time.
Wes's Saturday night.
Consider this
Does better.
in naming your podcast. That would be hilarious. A couple people have made that joke about, like, oh, I'm going to start Bobby's Saturday morning sit back. Oh, I'm going to start Tommy's Monday afternoon sit back. I'm like, go ahead, motherfuckers.
Damn,
Let's see if you stick around for 100 episodes.
Fuck. I probably wouldn't.
It's super fun, but I think people underestimate. They don't underestimate the work. They underestimate the results. I'm part of this Facebook group of podcasters, and almost every week there's at least one person who's like, oh, and they're like you and me. We're like, no one knows who they are, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, I'm John Smith, and I just released my first episode of John Smith's Wednesday afternoon sit back, and nobody's listening. It's like, well,
yeah, who are you?
I mean, I had that same response, but now I look back on it, I'm like, how ignorant was I? Like,
Yeah,
you know,
like you're gonna be like a breakout Joe Rogan on your first episode.
well, and that's what people expect, and then they get 10 episodes in, and then 20 episodes in, and they still don't have any listeners,
Yeah,
and then they give up.
yeah. I mean, it takes a lot of dedication, because I'm so worried about, like, it's another reason why I deleted social media. I'm so worried about what other people think about me that, like, if I got like 10 episodes in, I'd be like, all right, nobody fucking cares what I have to say, and I would just stop.
That's the cool thing, is I'm not saying anything. You said everything. I just got to sit here and enjoy and sip my drink and ask a couple clarifying questions. And
Yeah. Now I'm just gonna sit and stare at it and be like, what are they saying about me?
stare at it.
Yeah, whenever you post.
Oh, like when this comes out?
Yeah.
No one watches, so.
Yeah. I'm gonna be like, fuck. It's got like 100 views and it's just me. Just have a bunch of different accounts. That Jacob guy's really cool. He looks good.
Well, and half the views are Thad.
Oh yeah.
Because every time I leave, you know what I put on for him? The podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He's a devout listener.
Yeah, he is. #1 fan. Look at that guy. Dead asleep.
You know what you and him have in common?
Careful.
You both like to go under things.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't do it while he's podcasting, but some of his favorite spots are like underneath the couch, underneath the bed. I've even thought about getting like some sort of different chair for the porch that's big enough that he can fit underneath it. So when he's on the porch, he can be under something. He loves being underneath shit.
Yeah, because I noticed whenever he was out there, he was like kind of trying to squeeze underneath that chair. Like he had his head underneath it, and his big old body was not under it.
You know when his big old body comes to advantage?
Huh.
Sometimes he'll sunbathe on the edge of the porch, and I get worried he'll roll off underneath.
He's not.
He's too thick.
Yeah, by a lot.
It keeps him safe.
It does.
Yeah.
And he's sweet.
He is sweet. He's a sweet boy.
Yeah.
What you doing with your Sunday?
I'm going to go home and play college football.
So I won't see you at the gym.
No.
Okay.
Or I think I've probably missed like every Sunday football game today, actually.
It's only 2:40.
Yeah, I think most of them started at 12.
Oh.
Way to go, pal. Just kidding.
I told you could come over at 7 a.m.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you could have been out by your football
Cool.
games.
No,
Yeah.
thanks. I'm not fucking waking up early on a Sunday.
Dude, I'm still chuckling about yesterday because it went from 5 to noon to 11 to 10, and then at 8:30 he was like, "I'll be there at 9:30." I'm like, dude, like, it was a great episode. I had a ton of fun. I was just like, this is. But then I also sort of liked it. That's why I texted you. I was like, that's sort of nice because we were done by like 1 or 2 or something. I was like, wow, I still have my whole day ahead of me. Got a podcast done. Feel productive AF.
Yeah.
Productive maxing.
Jesus. You're cut off.
Okay.
You're done.
Okay.
We're done.
We are done. Dude, thanks for being here. I appreciate it. This was a fun time. Hey, guys, thanks for sticking around. I appreciate you all. Have a healthy and happy Saturday night. We'll see you next week. Bye, guys.